So hello and welcome to another episode of the Wiki Weekdays podcast. I'm your host this week, Karl Smallwood, joined as ever by the illustrious Lucas Holland.
Hello there.
And for anyone tuning in for the first time, first of all, thank you. Much appreciated.
Yeah, it's nice to know that the Golden Arches brought you in.
Yeah, just like they do to me when I'm drunk on a Friday. But just right then, I really felt like I was doing the smile. Because people listen to the audio version, you didn't see it, but I just then did the really self-satisfied smile that Jerry does in Parks and Rec when just Chris Traeger's like, "Hey, Jerry." It's like, "Yeah, no, that's all I need." Really? Yeah, I mean, you did a great job, superstar. And he just goes, "You look so
I
happy."
did.
Well, thank you. Yes. If anyone is tuning in for the first time, this is a weekly podcast series where myself and my good friend Lucas will scour the lengths and breadths of the internet for a wiki on a subject we're interested in and then bring it forward for discussion. And that discussion, we like to allow our audience to vote on which discussion inspires the most interesting conversations, tidbits, facts, and tangents. And last week we brought forward two subjects, Lucas, and I brought forward what?
Well, you brought forward Raiden from Metal Gear Solid / Metal Gear Rising, and I was like, we'd just been talking about Mortal Kombat today, so I was thinking Raiden so much of
Yes.
that.
I brought the wiki entry on Raiden from the Metal Gear series, and you brought forward the wiki entry on Sony Smash Brothers, aka PlayStation All-Star Battle Royale. And this is how you can tell the vote is for which wiki inspired the greatest conversation, and not the wiki that is the thing that you like the most. Because PlayStation All-Star Battle Royale won, and there's no way that's anyone's favorite game.
Yeah, is this the first time that PlayStation All Stars Battle Royale has won anything?
It might be. It might be the first. I bet if you went back and looked, it won a bunch of Critics' Choice Awards.
I'm sure it probably won I don't know, fucking award for best fighting game on PlayStation Vita for that year or something.
Something like that, yeah. But yeah, that's the one that won. So Lucas, you win the internet points for last week.
Yeah.
But that's not the only gimmick we have. Although I do like the gimmick of allowing our audience to vote on Discord which wiki they thought brought forward the best discussion. But the other gimmick we have, also decided by our fans over on our Discord, is Pet of the Week. And who's this week's Pet of the Week? Because they're there like Cher or Teller or Prince, just them anonymous.
I love this because not only is our winner cow, and to clarify that the person who posted this said that this is their cow, but the cow does not have a title.
All I can picture is just someone on a farm, it's a farmer when the traditional farmer's garb, hoisting haystacks on their shoulders, just listening to our podcast, having a jolly old chuckle about it. And if you do own a farm and you listen to his podcast and you happen to see a chicken, nod at the chicken and say, "Well done." I respect your hustle as a chicken, me, Karl Smallwood. You go, chicken.
I think one of my favorite, archives channels that I've seen is just a person who has figured out how to get their chickens to do a death metal crowd spiral just for the food. They make them all go in the proper pit. Great. But yeah, I think it's very fitting that on the week that Mario Kart World launched, Karl, the few days following is cow supremacy time.
You've got to do cow supremacy, man. It's providing us with all that delicious beef and milk. Just protein on protein.
It's true.
So I felt really bad the other day. I was making a protein shake and I made it with milk and I put in collagen for because I'm old. And I noticed, it's made with beef bones. So I just made cow juice with added cow. The cow with added cow. That's when you have chicken parmesan with an egg on it, and it's so chicken covered in free chicken.
Yeah, and I have to hope that in Mario Kart World they offer vegan options at those burger stalls, because cow will eat the burgers, and that's not okay if that's beef.
It's one of my not biggest pet peeves, but something that always pisses me off is when, say, you have a chicken restaurant and their mascot is a chicken. I don't like the idea of the betrayer chicken.
I mean, I guess
that's
true
the
of
Uncle Sam
equivalent. Work for.
Yeah. No, it's not the Uncle Tom of the chicken universe, right?
Yeah,
Of
because
just
like
betraying its own kind, its own people.
it'll come into more conversation when we talk about my subject for the week. But like, if people aren't aware, I do work at Nando's, which literally they have like Barcy the cockerel as like their logo, so that means that it's like the rooster, the cockerel, whatever. That is like, hey, I'm a chicken. Come to the chicken restaurant.
It's the betrayer chicken. I don't like it. It's like chip shop restaurants, like that sell like fried fish and they have a fish on the logo. It's like, what did that fish do to not get cooked? Who did it sell out?
Oh, we have cow updates coming live in the chat.
Let's go.
Like the professor has noted that they asked their wife what the cow's name is, so they have an update on what the cow's actual name is.
I would like to know that, yes. But while we are discerning what the name of cow is, the other thing that we need to like promote, Lucas, is the fact that there's people on our Patreon. They can subscribe at any tier, and if you subscribe at any tier, you gain access to the ability to post pictures of your pets, pictures of cows, pictures of blurry animals. No one's done the thing yet of getting a picture of a bird flying past the window.
No
That's the
one's
one I want.
captured that just yet. No.
But we do like to shout out people who support us on the higher tiers, don't we, Lucas? And I have that list in front of me now.
I did not get that list in front of me now, but let me get
Don't
that
need to
list
go through
in front
it.
of me.
I don't mind doing it.
Okay, you know what? You take the wheels this week, Karl.
Yeah, I'll take the wheels. Also take B of Awesome with several B emojis and a crown emoji. Wu Wong King, Day One Piece Wonka. The Burning Dragon burns bright in the Bourbon Bureau of bodacious buffoons buffing barns in the backs of Bengal barnacles. Rosalindis Memphis, Nick Naqui Horchata. Lucille de Steele, Little Ghost, Kicking Bucket with a bucket emoji, Judge Dredd, Decipher Bio, and Carlos Crea una oración en español para Totora, a Carlo, Palochica, y Lucas Holland and Petron.
And
I practiced it.
I
practiced
can't
the whole thing.
quite remember where I saw the feedback, but somewhere, whether it be on, like the Discord or a comment section, they did mention that, that translate, or somebody mentioned that it translates to just, I'm putting this in Spanish to torture Karl and Lucas, essentially.
I believe someone also complimented me on my pronunciation of horchata, but said you are like slightly off, but that's to be expected due to your skin tone.
I think it's pronounced more with like a silent H, right? So it's like horchata.
Horchata. It's difficult, right? It's like when
it's not our language, yeah.
There's those like quirks of languages that are just very difficult for like a non-native speaker to like just get. Like I think of like when I went to Saudi Arabia with a friend of mine. And like the thing about like Arabic with like the guttural thing, like the Hayam, like there's a like Hayam Saban, like the Power Rangers thing is the thing where he talks about like my name is actually Hayam, but like that noise is very difficult for a non-native speaker to make. Cause it's just not natural.
Yeah,
like I'm not saying it's a bad. I just mean it's not natural for a lot of the way speaking systems that exist.
It's not natural to the language that we are familiar with, English. Like
But English is its own fucking nightmare, right? I think to that great post of imagine learning English. You've got to be a hero, right? If you're learning it as a second language, and you look at the word yacht and don't give up.
Yeah, and there's a lot of obviously multiple different things across many languages where just I struggle, for example, like rolling my R's, but that's a very common thing in a lot of other languages.
It's also a very attractive thing as well. Like when like you see the Spanish ladies doing it and they're rolling their R's. I've spoken before about the fact that I learned Spanish in school and all I did was stare at my teacher. Like she could roll her R's. So when I was like, dicking around in class, she's like, Karl, but she'd roll the R on the car and it's like, oh.
There we go. I know how to seduce Karl in the future.
Speak Spanish.
Just need to learn how to roll my R.
That's the one. Roll the R's and then you get to roll the wood.
Anyway, beside that, we do have the update here that the cow's name is Ruthie.
That's a great name. Ruthie the cow.
Ruthie the cow.
So all I think when I think someone owns animals, I can never not imagine that clip of Gordon Ramsay just calling a fucking lamb mint sauce and chasing after it on his TikToks of like yum yum.
Because it was Gordon Ramsay, right, that took their kids to like make sure they're aware of where food comes from and stuff, and people were just giving them a load of shit. How dare
you got shit for it. And it's like, well, I want my kids to appreciate the animals and the process that's here, and appreciate why I always buy organic.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I don't think you should hide the truth of where food comes from children, and if they
Well,
find it horrifying and disgusting, maybe we should start sign as a bit of a reflection point, right?
it's also the thing as well of like, if you're uncomfortable talking about the thing, maybe that's part of the reason why I should talk more about it. But I guess we can get to that when we cover your wiki entry, Lucas. But is there anything else you need to mention before we can just delve right into the discussion of the many nuggets?
I think just the usual of make sure that you're subscribed in here and like the video if you're enjoying it so far, etc. But I also want people in the comments to let me know and let Karl know, what is the nuggy limit?
50.
50.
50. So
50.
one of my fondest memories is I was in Poland, absolutely blind, piss drunk, and me and my friend were staying in a hostel, and the hostel was right next door to a McDonald's. And I lost my friend, so I went back to the hostel by asking for directions to the McDonald's. Found my way there, and I saw on the board, because obviously it's a McDonald's next to a hostel in Poland. It's like, we do 50 chicken nuggets. I went, fucking that's it. I'm ordering only 50 chicken nuggets. They give me like a shoebox full of nuggets. I sit down, open the box, look up. My friend who I'd lost is sat there with the exact same amount of nuggets. And we said, oh! And just smashed 50 nuggets in a row each.
I wanted to talk about today's wiki is just on McDonald's.
McDonald's is a concept.
McDonald's as like a business and a corporation and a concept, yeah. And I find it very fascinating. But the first thing that always comes to my mind, like my, order of choice is the nuggies. And I think it's a fun thing because, as I say, comment below or comment in the live chat what your nuggy limit is, because it's a subjective thing. I find it really interesting to see how people can push themselves and whether people have pushed themselves to the point of no more return, like no more.
Well, you know like how bad I am with McDonald's. I fucking love McDonald's. And my life was changed one time when I was ordering like a Big Mac. And it's like a Big Mac in the UK is like £7 for a Big Mac meal. And I looked at that and went, that's too expensive. And I went, how much is it for just 5 cheeseburgers? And 5 cheeseburgers was £6. And so it's cheaper to get 5 cheeseburgers than it is to get 1 Big Mac. So now my usual McDonald's order is just 2 cheeseburgers, 2 McChickens.
I still remember,
and it's like £4.
Like there was one time when we were coming back. I think it might have been from like an event or something, and we went in drunk to Mackey's, and I think you'd had a few more than I had, and I was like, still drunk, a little bit more clear-minded, but we were there ordering. And you were like, well, I'm not going to get nuggies. I'm just going to have some of your nuggies. And I was like, Karl, you need to tell me, are we getting nuggies or am I getting nuggies? Because there's a very different amount of nuggets that I'm going to buy if we're both sharing nuggets together. I don't mind it if I'm going to buy some extra nuggets, but I need you to know that my 20 nuggets are going to be my 20.
I'm also, as I'll apologise for that, because I hate sharing food, so... I must have been very drunk if I was expecting to share someone else's food.
But you were just like, no, it's fine though, because I'll just have some of yours. I was like, Karl, I'm trying to just let you know we can get more, but these 20 are going to be my 20.
It's fair enough.
But I'm not shaming you, don't worry. We've all been there, right? There's many worse things you can be accused of doing while drunk than trying to steal a nuggie.
I think it was like a Fact Fiend live event where you were stopping at my house, where we ordered like takeaway. And for some reason, like, we didn't realize that everything we ordered came with a portion of chips. And then we ordered a portion of chips extra for each of us. And we ended up with like 16 portions of chips for like 4 people.
Apparently, between the 4 of us, we couldn't do maths at that point, and we all double checked the order because, again, we knew like at what stage we were at 3 o'clock in the morning. We all looked through it, went through, yeah, that's mine, that's mine, that's mine. Sound, we ordered the thing and just an inordinate amount of chips came.
This thing was that cost me like a tenner.
Yeah,
because I had like stacking discounts. Like I had like the Just Eat thing of like 5 orders in a row, stamp cards. You get like so much from your order over a certain amount. You get like 20% off, and all the deals stacked, and it cost like a tenner.
Yeah, and we went for like all of the mega meal deals where like it was
Yeah.
multiple meal deals put together
Buy
and
one, get
stuff.
one
Yeah.
free. It's like I was at a mate's house watching a film. We did a film night, and they had like a burger offer, and it's like, okay, buy one, get one free.
Oh
So
right,
we
yeah.
did the thing like, okay, so I'll get this burger, you get that burger, and you have the like, and then we expected one of them to come free, and ended up sending 4 burgers. But we only paid like £6, and we were like, what?
Yeah, I don't
Someone had to drive this to your house?
like I don't do like takeaways that often, but when I do, I am that person that's sitting there like, okay, so what are the things that are on like the buy one get one frees for the day
Got to
and
do it.
stuff? Yeah,
Maximize.
make
That's the
sure
thing, when I
I've got
order a
enough food
takeaway,
for like 2 days worth. Yeah.
it's the only thing that I eat that day, and I always do it after I've been to the gym. So it's like I fucking earned this. But either way, yeah. Tell me more about McDonald's.
Well, I think it's interesting because I don't really need to explain McDonald's much to people, right?
It is an institution.
It is an institution, and it's been doing business as McDonald's since 1940,
So
where
that is
it
like
began.
statistically longer than 99.9% of the people who ever watch this video have been alive.
Yeah.
Longer, McDonald's is longer than that.
Yeah, so you've got to at least be 86 years old right now to have seen or potentially seen the beginnings of McDonald's.
There's literally not a single member of my family that old.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
Presumably because we all eat a lot of takeaway. So.
But brothers Richard and Maurice McDonald founded McDonald's in San Bernardino in California in 1940 as a hamburger stand, and soon franchised the company. And in terms of the story of franchising and stuff, although it's obviously a dramatization, I do think the movie The Founder is really interesting as a watch.
About Ray Kroc, right? And how much of a fucking arsehole he was.
It's about Ray Kroc, who joined McDonald's as a franchise agent and bought the company in 1961, and then expanded. And essentially, it's the story of how a small company, McDonald's, got basically figured out marketing-wise and franchise-wise by Ray Kroc.
Ray Kroc, genius, because there's a couple of like rules that he implemented that created the concept of fast food. I think The Founder, since some of the clips, like, it deals with like people not the concept of fast food when people first heard it. Like, there's the guy getting a burger, right, and he goes, orders his food, and it gets slid over to him. He's like, "What? I don't have to sit down and wait." It's like, "No, your food's right here."
Yeah,
it's fast food, and just like such a simple concept today, but the idea of like people didn't know what fast food was is interesting.
Yeah, it really is, and I think there's like obviously different ways to do it. Like, for example, I work at like a chicken restaurant, and
that's fast casual.
It's like, I think it began as like a food stall, and the idea was it being like fast food adjacent, and over the years it's certainly tried to like inch itself away from the idea of like being a fast food restaurant specifically, and more towards being geared as a restaurant. But the concept of cooking things in advance to then, put on a grill and serve char grilled later, that concept still stands as core of how you run the restaurant and how the food can come out quickly, right?
Yeah, not to mention not having a very limited menu. That was a joke about people make about Taco Bell. Where like I think it goes back to like there is I don't know if it's a joke, but there's some aspects like Taco Bell. It's like they've got like 8 ingredients served in like 30 different ways.
Right. Yeah.
But like McDonald's is that as well, right? Of like the menu looks quite substantive, but if you look at it, it's like it's just combinations of like 6 or 7 different things.
Yeah.
Or seasonal items. And that's what allows them to maximize.
Yeah,
profit.
like a lot of the items are, the same like patties and fillets being used in different ways for wraps and burgers, and the chicken nuggets and stuff like that. Like obviously the nuggets are a standalone item most of the time, but then you get like, oh, we've got a new menu item, spicy nuggets, where we put a bit of seasoning on.
Yeah, so it's interesting because it is a fascinating concept, and it's so streamlined. That's what makes stuff in regards to McDonald's operations so interesting to watch, because that's just the way it operates is this is a company that has spent nigh on a century perfecting something.
Yeah.
Right? Like I think like their burgers, for example, cook in 40 seconds from frozen.
It's
And
hard. It's
because
how quick it is. I
it's
know it's
about
like around the minute.
it's definitely less than a minute.
Yeah.
And the original concept that Ray Kroc introduced was the 3-minute rule, which is a customer should be sitting down and eating within 3 minutes of entering the establishment.
Which
And that generally holds true unless you're in a very, very busy McDonald's to this day.
yeah, I mean, I want to say that nowadays maybe not. I think post COVID, like I would argue that
Deliveroo has fucking ruined that.
yeah, I do think that has been ruined by the idea that you can order it on Deliveroo or Uber Eats or whatever. Because I go into a McDonald's restaurant now, like I literally walked past a McDonald's earlier and was like, "Hey, I think McDonald's would be an interesting conversation." But you look inside and there's like one person eating in, a couple of people in the drive-through, and then maybe like 10 people standing there with their food delivery bags waiting to pick up stuff.
And that's the problem there. And that's more to do with just franchise owners wanting to maximize profit.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see how that can affect the kitchen because, you know, same as anywhere else. Like, take orders at our restaurant online, and it can all of a sudden just like come out of nowhere. And sometimes it'll be like not busy, and you get a bunch of deliveries. But what happens when you've already got a super busy kitchen, and then there's no way of really like doing much if 10 people decide to order a delivery at the same time?
And that's in a traditional restaurant. If 20 people walked in, you had a full restaurant, they would be told either you got to wait or leave and come back another time. But no franchise owner of a fast food restaurant is ever going to cancel delivery orders.
And I don't
Right?
think it's a good idea too, because at the end of the day, I think a lot of people's spending habits have changed, and a lot of people probably are making the decision to get a takeaway rather than go and eat out. And I think
Yes.
it's money left on the floor, so to speak, if you don't want to embrace that, right?
Exactly, yeah. But it is interesting that the service is technically worse now, even though we've made great strides that would seem like that have streamlined and revolutionized entire aspects of the business, and yet it is worse than it was back in the day because all those extra elements have just made some aspects more complicated, and that complexity adds time. It adds
Yeah.
more points of failure into the chain. That the end result will be you getting your food.
But ultimately, I think the one thing about, at least generally speaking, the one thing about fast food is the consistency.
That's the thing. It's my go-to meal whenever I'm abroad anywhere is just a McDonald's cheeseburger.
Generally
Because
speaking, you know what you're in for, right? And that's the, if you're not sure of what you eat and whether you'll like it, there's something there where there's just the safe choice.
it's usually as well cheap. Like I said, you can go. I went to like Spain a couple months ago, and like all the restaurants and stuff, it's like okay, 10, 15 quid for a head, plus you got to sit down for like half an hour. I was like, well, I can just go get 4 like hamburgers from McDonald's for €4, and it's not that unhealthy when you think about it. Like, obviously it is, but like calorie wise, 4 hamburgers is like 600 calories.
Yeah, it's not insane when it's just the small hamburger from McDonald's.
Exactly,
Right?
it's the
Yeah.
fries and the drinks that usually have the calories on there. But like 4 hamburgers is a decent amount of protein and a decent amount of calories, and as long as you have like a more substantial meal later, it's actually not that bad. Like I remember there's an article by I think it's the Washington Post, like this is what the perfect food in terms of like caloric content, like cost, speed it takes to make, ubiquity, ease of access is a double cheeseburger.
Right, yeah.
If just in terms of like sheer amount of like if you need food as a thing to sustain a person, your
Yeah.
best bet is a double cheeseburger.
It's it's interesting because I remember not long ago on a British news or morning channel or something,
Mhm.
there was a discussion where somebody was arguing about the price of food being too high to eat healthily. And then somebody chimes in of like, well, carrots. Well, you can get carrots and spinach relatively cheap, and it's like true, but then you're left with a plate of carrots and spinach, which is not very balanced as a meal and not very filling. And
Yeah.
your
And everyone
argument,
knows like rice and beans are cheap, but to cook beans from like I'm thinking like not a tin of beans, like that's 40 minutes.
yeah, and
Rice is 20 minutes, right? That's what people talk about. It's like that's an hour of your time to cook a meal that's probably not going to taste that nice.
and instead, for probably less money, you can buy a couple of frozen things to throw in the oven to feed your family in half an hour, right?
Yeah. And normally my middle ground between that is just the bags of frozen veg. Those things are fucking lifesavers for me.
They're
They're
actually
just
way healthier for you as well. They have more nutrients in them than the fresh food that's taken days to get there.
they don't taste as nice, admittedly,
Hmm.
but it's like when I'm making like an omelette or something, like an omelette, just bag of frozen veg, like quickly just grill that off with like some soy sauce and stuff, and like put it on top of my omelette, or into like when I'm making ramen,
Yeah,
pasta. When I'm making soup, just cook some of that off and chuck it into a soup.
I know there's probably gonna people like disagreeing with me. When I'm talking like massive supermarket chains and stuff, the
Yes,
amount of time that it takes for them to get their like fresh produce in and stuff is generally speaking less nutritionally viable than the frozen things, which are frozen almost instantly to preserve
at the
all of
point of yeah,
the freshness.
and we're talking about the good quality stuff. We're not talking about the like, a decent bag of like frozen veg that's like you can still see that the greenery in there
Yeah,
is one thing.
yeah,
Obviously, nothing's ever going to match like just fresh, wholesome organic veg, but there is a benefit to that frozen stuff.
yeah. It's not quite competing with going straight to like I don't know a farm or maybe even a farmer's market or something where they can generally guarantee more freshness. But yeah, anyway, it's
Yeah, I think having those things are a lifesaver, man. They're so good.
yeah.
Just big, massive bag of frozen veg, big bag of like chopped onions in all of like my soups and my pasta sauces.
But I can understand why people don't necessarily see a bag of frozen veg being reheated, like just popping that on a plate with some you know protein or carbs or whatever. It might not seem like the healthiest meal or whatever. So there's still a lot of argument to be made of
It just in your
buying
head, it
like
doesn't make sense, right? In your head,
yeah
fresher means better. It's similar to like microwaves. People see microwaves as being what's the fast way to cook food, right? There's multiple studies being done of like it's actually one of the best ways to cook food because it cooks it so fucking quickly. It doesn't have a chance to lose or leach nutrients out.
yeah it's just wild that again it's probably cheaper for you to go buy like some fast food like McDonald's or something for your family than it is to get an actual like full family meal that's healthy that's gonna hit all of the different brackets and stuff. And I think it's a totally valid point is that yeah, generally speaking in terms of time and money it's not very affordable.
It's the time cost that's the real killer here. Because when someone says like, it's every time you see someone talking about wanting to save money, you always have someone say, "We'll buy a massive fat bag of rice and some beans and meal prep." And it's like that takes time,
Yeah,
and time is so fucking valuable, especially when you are on like the breadline or don't have a lot of money. You probably don't have a lot of free time as well,
might also
and
not have a lot of money to buy items in bulk, which
in bulk and storage space is at a
yeah,
premium.
it's like
I remember having this.
bulk is cheaper if you have the money there up front to be able to do it, right?
Yes, and that's the thing as well. It's like it's the time cost. I remember having this conversation with an ex of mine who's American, explaining like baked beans. Like Americans, for some reason, really, really don't like the idea of baked beans on toast.
Yeah,
Like they seem,
it's weird, right? Because a lot of people will. It's a way more common in America than over here to use like refried beans and
yeah. But when I pointed out to my ex, I'm like, it's like, did you really have beans on toast as a kid? I went, yes, it was our go-to struggle meal. So for Americans, think of your struggle meal, like I don't know, your grilled cheese and tomato soup. And we said, well, surely it's cheaper to like buy rice and beans. When it's really not. So if you were my dad and you got to cook a meal for 2 kids in 10 minutes, you're not going to be able to like put like a pan of rice on to boil and cook some beans and stuff. And like you said, oh, you could prepare it ahead of time. When he worked nights and we were at school, but especially when beans, like nutritionally wise, they're not bad. They've got a decent amount of protein in them. They're 1 of your 5 a day. If you get the low sugar and salt versions, they're okay. They cost 30 fucking pence, and you can get a loaf of bread for like 30, 40 pence, like when I was a kid.
Yeah.
That is a meal, and like 1 tin of beans and 1 loaf of bread can feed 2 kids for 2 meals.
And
if you have
also,
extra stuff with them.
In terms of, it doesn't require any real culinary skill, right?
Yes. And it's like, yeah, so my dad was able to cook a meal that was fine for a lunch thing to just give us some energy and a bit of protein before a main meal in the evening when I had more time to cook it. And it cost him like 30 pence per child. That's like, it's a struggle meal. And every time Americans make fun of beans on toast, like those same Americans will throw a shit fit if you made fun of a grilled cheese sandwich. It's like, well, my mum made me that one when we didn't have much money. Exactly.
But anyway,
it's
Karl,
all we had. Yeah.
We are straying from the point. Yeah, just going back.
I get so defensive.
I know you love your beans on toast, Karl. I know.
I don't like when Americans make fun of British food because American food is fucking awful in terms of like its nutritional quality.
Yeah.
And I think and when they make fun of like you don't season your food, it's like we do. We use like actual herbs. I think it's that thing you told me where it was like some lady making like a pie, and Americans will roast her in the comments for not seasoning it, and she put like fresh herbs in it. And Americans didn't know that fresh herbs is seasoning.
Yeah,
because it didn't come out of the packet that said seasoning on it, and it's like
they use like whole leaves and herbs and stuff, and a lot of the comments were like, "Can't believe you put no seasoning in there." Okay, sure. You just can't have that conversation, I guess. But it's kind of like wild thinking about when you say like, "Oh yeah, American food having no nutrition." Of course, there is
that is a generalization, of course. I know there's some, but I just think too, like if you got the most basic, like shitty tin of like British soup, like I'm talking like the Sainsbury's own tomato soup, and compared it to like the American version is just going to have way more preservatives and bad shit in there because Georgia's rules about what you're allowed to put in food are so much more lax than they are over here, to the point where a lot of American food is literally illegal to sell in the UK.
Yeah, it is. I remember that time where I hated the discussion around, are we going to start allowing chlorinated chicken to be like over here, and are we going to be buying those like chickens in the cans that you pour out of a can? And I'm like, I understand it's still a chicken, but yeah, that shit literally is not legal over here.
Like American Fanta, right? That's like luminous orange because they flavor it with fake orange flavoring instead of actual orange juice.
Even though actual orange juice is more of a yellowy color, like Fanta is, because it uses real orange juice. Anyway, McDonald's.
That's my beef with it.
It's kind of like McDonald's is what I think of when someone would say like, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you say American food? Like McDonald's would be my answer, and obviously there are ways to eat at any fast food place near enough to make it healthier. But generally speaking, it's a burger, fries. Like we obviously will be using the word chips a lot in this, but like French fries, hamburgers, stuff like that. That's the foundation that sits at the bottom of McDonald's, right?
The actual burger is fine. Like I said, if it's as a snack, it's fine. Like as a post-gym snack as well. I normally I just get like a single hamburger as a post-gym snack because it's like 12, 13 grams of protein and 150 calories. That's not bad. That's like a protein bar. That's what I have a protein bar for.
But, there are aspects to it where it's less healthy. For example, when you start doing like the burgers with 3-4 patties on them, like you're doubling down on like
they're better because there's more protein compared to the carbs. It's the carbs
that
you don't really want.
Red meat if you're eating them often, and
red meat is fucking awful for you. You want lean protein like chicken, fish, or like plant-based protein, which is normally what I eat.
It's absolutely fine if you want to have red meat. We're not coming at you for it, but just it is agreed upon within like health communities and scientific communities that yes, eating a lot of red meat all the time is not a healthy thing to do.
We discussed this in the video we did a year or so ago about Supersize Me. Well, I mentioned
I'll bring that
offhand
up.
that like red meat is terrible for you, and half the comments on that video are people getting mad that I said that.
Mhm.
Like, red meat is not terrible for you. It's like every fucking scientist says so. Like, I both myself and you say like that's why like a vegan diet is on paper a lot healthier for you in some respects. The amount of people like no, it's not. It's like every bit of research says that fat is bad for you, and
Yeah.
red meat is full of like shit that's not good for your body. The protein is good, but that's like really the only thing that your body needs, and you can get that from so many other sources that don't have the extra shit that's bad for you.
Yeah, you can eat leaner white meat that will be healthier for you, like
Or
for
plant-based
example,
proteins,
chicken
and you can
or
take
plant-based
supplements
stuff.
to
Yeah,
make. And just the amount of like weirdo who must make eating meat their personality, getting frustrated to be told that when it's like it's science,
well,
right? It's a solved issue at this point, like nutrition wise.
yeah.
It's just the only problem is that people don't have access to the information, and that's the problem, right?
Don't tell the
Is
Liver
it?
King that, right?
Yeah. Is it like they say like hunger's a solved issue? It's just it's more now a not production, but like more people in the world are obese than underweight now, and there's enough food that we produce that everyone could eat enough. It's just getting the food to where it needs to go, not so
Yeah, I
much
was
like
gonna say
nutrition
that's a
wise.
very misleading statement to make that hunger is solved because it's definitely not. But we could make enough food for
Yeah,
everybody if we could get the food to everybody.
and nutrition is largely a solved science at this point. There's obviously more you can do, and there's more ways to make it more efficient, but the human body is not really that much of a mystery anymore. We know what the body needs.
Yeah, and it does say here that McDonald's has been subject to criticism for its food and nutrition, all that thereof, animal welfare, and low worker wages, and they're all very, very valid things. And I've worked for multiple fast food chains. I won't name them all here, but I can say, for example, that I have done in the past and currently work for Nando's, and I've chosen to go back there to work because it's a company that treats its staff well and it's a good place to work. Like it's literally won awards for being one of like the best companies to work for in the UK and such in like multiple years. McDonald's I have heard bad things about.
It's just they just expect a lot of, even over in the UK where we have like mandatory minimum wages and stuff. It's just I don't hear good stories about like respect given
No.
to workers, and I think the summation or the thing like I think encapsulates the American as a whole approach to like those kind of jobs is the fact that when Aldi went over to America,
Hmm.
they wouldn't let staff sit down.
Right, yeah.
Like, do you know that thing of like not letting staff sit down in like American retail or fast food joints? And that is just so fucking alien to me. But I think it's some sort of, it's Ray Kroc who came up with this concept. If you have time to lean, you have time to clean. And like he is instrumental in creating that culture in the US of like never letting service workers ever stop for a second. Because
Hmm.
any second they're not working is a second they're not generating profit for the business.
I will say that there are other companies, fast food companies and stuff that I have worked for where that is the expectation. I do think that that is quite pervasive in hospitality
But
in
it's
the UK
because
as
of Ray
well.
Kroc. Like Ray Kroc is the one who like created that culture that other businesses obviously sought to emulate due to the success McDonald's enjoyed.
Yeah, and
It's like, fuck your Ray Kroc for that one.
that's the
If you've
thing
got
is,
time to lean, you've got time to clean. It's like, how about fuck you?
like, Ray Kroc is fascinating on his own as a person to talk about because, yeah, they saw the concept of McDonald's and the kind of like the way they invented fast food essentially as brothers and came up with not only like the right layout of a kitchen but the right idea of just, well, we're going to make things work like a production line.
The maximizing of efficiency is very interesting. And it's a good idea. It's like, it's a very handy thing for a business to, like, eliminate waste and maximize, like, just employee utility, right? Just, there's an there is always the human cost. And I think that when I worked in a bar, just the idea of wastage, for example, on a bar of like, it doesn't matter how fucking efficient or good your staff is, every now and again, someone's going to drop a glass. Someone's going to overfill a pint.
Yeah.
Someone's going to make a mistake. A customer is going to complain. You have to factor in the human element that a mistake will be made and it's got to factor into your bottom line. And when just managers or franchise owners refuse to accommodate for that, or the classic is, okay, your shift starts at 9, but I want you here at 8:30. And it's like, okay, so do I start my shift? No, you got to be here at 8:30, and then they expect you to work before then, but you're not allowed to get paid. Or, okay, the restaurant shuts at 5, and that's when your shift ends, but also you got to clean down. And they just don't factor in there's that human element of, so when do you actually want me to be like move around? Or like,
and also let's double that down with the fact that there's a lot of customers that don't take the human element into account as well, right?
Like the pandemic proved that, right? It was all those like anecdotal stories you heard recounted by service workers, like the one of someone who was recounting, I was opening up a store and a customer climbed over the sign to get into the store, into a lights off store to ask us, like, can I serve them? It's like, no, sorry, we're just setting up. Why are the doors open? Oh, like legally we have to have doors open if people are inside. There's no one in here. And the manager recounts having to explain to his customer that the staff are people. Because in that person said they didn't see the staff as people. They saw them as like just an element of the shop.
Yeah. And it is crazy. Like, just the idea that I understand that if, you know, a restaurant says they shut at like midnight, right?
Yep.
You see that and expect, well, that means at midnight I can come in and get served. But just whether or not that is the case, depending on like the policy of the restaurant, there's just that lack of concern for other human beings, right? Where just, okay, well, are you thinking about all the people that want to get home at any point and how you're extending their shifts? And it's not to say that you shouldn't come in during opening times, but more just there's a lot of people that will never take that, again, that human element is kind of subjective and not very explainable, but just the idea that, you know, at least be polite and aware that other people have got things to be doing with their lives and accommodate that. Don't like take the piss if you know that you've come into a restaurant late and stuff like that. And it's not, I don't agree that, oh, well, actually, nobody, we shouldn't let anyone in, you know, in the last half hour of the restaurant, because fuck them. It's like, no. You're still serving people, you're still legally open, fair enough. But
at the same time, the bosses who are like, well, they're a customer, we've got to serve them, so we'll make money. And say, yes, but the cost of keeping an entire restaurant open for half an hour longer, so one person can order one meal, that's half an hour you have to pay 7 members of staff at minimum wage, at least. That is not worth the cost of the meal. They are literally costing the restaurant money by being here. If all you give a fuck about is profit, you should kick them out.
But they have to care about optics, right? And customer service as well. And
that's the other one as well. Customer is king. I think it's Ray Kroc who popularized that.
Oh, really?
Customer is king. Or the customer is always right. Even though it's a bastardized version of a British saying, I think, where it's, do you know the full version of a saying, the customer is always right?
The customer is always right in matters of taste, I believe, is
yes.
Quote.
So it's one of those sayings where the full version directly contradicts the accepted version. So the customer is always right, as we probably all know, is generally used by arsehole customers to just yell at staff. Of like, customer's always right, you give me a free fucking burger or I'm going to burn the restaurant down.
That's quite an extreme one, but yeah, sure.
But it happens, right? But customer is always right in matters of taste is a different interpretation. It's like, say if a customer walks into a restaurant and orders a well-done steak, you don't tell that customer, I'm not serving you a well-done steak because that's not how steak is served. The customer is right that is what they want. So if that's what the customer wants, it's what they get. It's like if a customer walks in and says, I think comes from like tailoring. If they walk in and say, I want a lime green suit with a bright pink tie, you don't tell them, I think that looks stupid. You ask them what size they'd like.
And you can obviously give suggestions of like, hey, I think this color of tie might complement the look better. Do you want to try
And
that? But
you can use
can't
your
ever tell
expertise.
them. Yeah, you can't ever tell them that their subjective opinions are wrong
Yes,
in terms of their taste.
exactly. But it gets bastardized into just, again, customer is king. Of like treat the customer like lick their ass. Are they gonna like no matter how much of an arsehole they are, you have to be nice to them? It's like that's not how it works.
And I did used to work with a chef in a different restaurant. Every time somebody ordered a steak well done, they would tell us, I am not doing it. Go back to the table and tell them that I will give them a steak, rare or medium rare. And if they don't like it, afterwards they can send their steak back and I will make it well done. And it's like, no, just they've asked for a well done steak. Give me a well done steak, please.
So, yeah, the customer is always right in matters of taste.
They know what they're asking for. Give them that, please. And they multiple times where I worked there, only for like a short period of time, but I saw them go over two tables and have this discussion face to face when like people said that's what they want, and they'd walk out the kitchen and go and like confront people about their steaks and tell them that they're wrong, and it's like, no, that's not what you do.
We used a guy in our comment section, right? And we said red meat's not good for you. Nice to know what he's been doing.
They were very, very, very angry because they were constantly talking about how they worked in like, they were trained in a place where this really well-regarded chef trained them on matters of how to cook steak perfectly and blah blah blah. And I was like, that's great, good for you. You can cook your steak perfectly then.
If you were trained by a good chef, though, a good chef would tell you, don't yell at the customers.
Yeah.
The chef, like Gordon Ramsay, would say, if someone ordered a well-done steak, I'll cook them a well-done steak. I think they're stupid and wrong, but I'd never say that to the customer's face, because if that's what they want, that's what they get.
Yeah, exactly. And you just... I want to go back to McDonald's, obviously, but like,
Yes.
I do think it's weird just reading here, right, that like when Ray Kroc bought
yes, he bought franchise rights.
He bought like, I think he bought the McDonald's brothers equity in the company, which the McDonald's company, and began the company's worldwide reach in 1961.
Yep, and he also bought their name.
Yeah, so he bought the McDonald's name, and I believe like the actual original McDonald's was like kept by the brothers, and then they rebranded to having like their own original burger shop, right?
They did, yes. So the story there is Ray Kroc bought them out, and the brothers agreed, we'll do that. You can buy the McDonald's name, but we want to keep the original's McDonald's restaurant, and you agree not to sue us. We'll be the one exception to restaurants being able to call themselves McDonald's. Ray Kroc agreed, and then like a year later, opened a McDonald's franchise next to that restaurant to run it out of business, purely as a fuck you. He was a piece of shit.
Yeah, that's the thing. Obviously, a successful businessman, a ruthless businessman, and an absolute arsehole as all accounts are concerned.
You didn't need to say he was an arsehole, you already said he was a successful businessman. No successful businessman becomes a success without being an arsehole.
Yeah, not worldwide level of success for sure.
Yeah.
And I do have to be corrected here, because it does say that the speedy service system, which the McDonald brothers introduced in 1948, put into expanded use of the principles of the fast food restaurant that predecessor, White Castle, had already put into practice more than 2 decades earlier.
Ah, so it's must be one of those things where McDonald's popularized it, so it becomes like, even to me, I assume they did it. It's like when I went to Big Boy. I was in America. I went to the Big Boy restaurant, which is like the one with like the kid outside, like holding the big plate with like the burger on it.
Oh,
and they had a little thing on their menu saying, yeah, years ago, someone who worked at our restaurant invented the double cheeseburger.
That's a ballsy statement.
Yeah, but and I looked it up, and apparently Big Boy did invent the double cheeseburger, and I'm like, fuck yeah, you did.
I have to imagine before that moment, somebody had looked at a hamburger and gone, I want another hamburger on my hamburger. They might have introduced it as like a restaurant item first, right?
Item, yeah. Like someone presumably made a double hamburger before that, but they made it a restaurant staple. But I do like those like industry legends, like the idea of like that's how potato chips became a thing, right? Supposedly, he was
As
like a
in
chef who
American
was,
potato chips.
I think, just in general, like crisps for us.
Okay, yeah,
The
that's what I was asking.
story,
Yeah, yeah.
the story is it was like fried potatoes, and just the customer kept asking for them to be thinner, and eventually the chef got so mad he cut them like paper thin and fried them, and the customer liked that.
Right, fair. And speaking of, places of invention, as far as I can tell, doing my research, I have eaten a burger from the place that in Hamburg has apparently invented the hamburger.
Yeah, the thing is, I bet there's so many restaurants
There's
in Hamburg that
researching it, there was about 20 places, but the most agreed upon location was like this old, literally, like fucking sideways restaurant. It was on a tilt.
yeah,
It's that old, like the foundations of some come one side,
like
and
a
it's
burger, right? When it starts
on
to
an
slide
angle.
in the
Yeah,
box.
like you literally had to like walk up, like holding on to things because it's like slightly tilted and stuff. But they're like, fuck it, that's the original restaurant that made a hamburger exist. Like, we're not changing it. And again, that's from what I did research at the time, that seemed to be the most agreed upon online restaurant that was the originator of the hamburgers. And can say that I've eaten like from there, which is interesting. But yeah, I do find it funny when there's always a clip that I enjoy seeing, like Tom Holland talking about British food versus American food, and there's an American that he's doing like the thing with probably like a Marvel co-star, and they're asked like which is better, and he's like, okay, name some American food. And like hamburgers, he's like, great, that's from Germany. French fries, he's like, great, that's kind of in the name, that one. And it's like they immediately just list off like 4 items of food, none of them originate in America.
Yep. Or apple pie, I think that's German as well.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously, like,
Hey, people make fun of shepherd's pie. At least that shit's British.
yeah, it's funny, really. I've been watching um the like series of videos that have been coming out of a British like condiment maker. They're trying to make 100% British ketchup because Jeremy Clarkson, being the bell and the ears, has got like a pub where everything in it has to have 100% British made stuff, right? And they refuse to sell ketchup in that pub because there's no 100% British ketchup.
Where's he getting sugar from?
Well, the thing is, even the company British Sugar, they contacted them to find out, is British Sugar British Sugar?
Of course,
And
it's
they were
not. It comes
like,
from the fucking Caribbean.
a lot of it's now made in Britain, but we do have some batches of it where it's actually not made in Britain, even though the company themselves is called British Sugar.
It's like raw ingredients, right? Just because the company ships them in, the raw ingredients got to come from somewhere. God.
Well, there's now ways to like grow anything anywhere, pretty much, right?
I imagine you could grow sugarcane in the UK. I'm not sure why you would.
Well, there's plenty of ways you could do it, and apparently British Sugar most of the time does grow it over here and produce it over here and stuff now. So it is possible.
Yeah, I love when I'm driving down the motorway and I see those sugarcane fields, right next to those British banana fields. Right?
Again, I don't know how they do it. I don't know, but like that's what they claim, and that's as I say, there are ways to pretty much grow anything here now if you've got the right amount of money. And
if you are racist enough,
like
you can grow it.
I think someone in chat mentions sugar beet fields. So yeah, you can make sugar from not necessarily just sugar cane. So yeah, but
there's going to be alternatives. It's just that thing of like, what a fucking prick thing, right? Of like, God, Jeremy Clarkson, especially as well when he drives like fucking German and American cars.
Yeah, that's the thing that pisses me off. Is it's not that he only ever consumes British things or whatever. It's to be a bellend and make a statement more than anything, right? And to double down on the type of people that follow Jeremy Clarkson.
As well, this is the guy who specifically bought a farm to not pay taxes.
No. He never said that, even though he's been recorded on camera saying
he said it in the first episode of his show. That he bought it to not pay tax. And it's like, that's the thing. Like, he's talking about we need to support Britain. Then pay your fucking taxes.
Yeah.
Right?
And it is clearly just, trying to capitalize on like people who fucking vote reform and shit of like, well, I want everything to be British, like blah blah blah. And I can't imagine how awful it must be to just get the general vibes of that pub, right?
I just remember, like, it's a person I don't speak to anymore. And part of the reason why is because they just were really insufferable about that sort of thing. I remember once when they talked about going to Jeremy Clarkson's farm and spending 12 quid to buy a pint. It's like, great, what a fucking champion of the working class, eh?
Yeah.
At least that dipshit who runs Weatherspoons charges £1.50 for a pint. Might be an arsehole, but at least, like, he's doing something for the working class, right?
They're both dickheads, but at least he's selling you a cheap pint out of it.
Yeah.
Speaking of just absolute arseholes that run big companies.
No, the
Jesus
thing I give that
Christ.
dude like props for is that the food is cheap, right? When he says I keep my prices as low as I physically can, he's not lying about that. Tim Miller does make it so that there's a reason why you go to Weatherspoons and they'll sell a pint for £1.86. And that's because that's literally as low as they can sell it to still make a profit. I respect that.
I don't respect anything else about the business, but yeah.
No, but honestly, I respect the fact that we are literally going to make our prices as cheap as they are possible to be. And still make a profit. We don't want to spend 12 quid on lager that has Jeremy Clarkson giving you a thumbs up on it.
Speaking of fucking making a profit though, Karl.
Let's go.
The sale that Croc made in 1961 was $2.7 million, which in today's money is worth about, according to this wiki, $28,410,134 in current day. And man,
they probably spent that on potatoes today.
Yeah, what a fucking steal! Like, what is the valuation right now of like?
A couple billion, right?
It does.
Another valuation went down recently.
Yeah, so it's apparently total assets right now as 2023. It says is 56.15 billion.
Yeah, it's a very valuable brand, and it's their infrastructure as well. Right? The thing that's valuable to McDonald's, if they will never get bought out by like another food company, is the infrastructure they have in place for like they own their own farms.
Well, it's one of the interesting things that is brought up in the founder, and again, dramatization. I don't know how exact everything is a detail.
There was probably a lot more like screaming matches going on.
Yeah, but the general idea of them buying land to then rent out to McDonald's. So they had a new company put in place to buy the land and then be the landlords for the McDonald's restaurants.
Well, that's the thing as well. It's presumably it gets mentioned in the founder of it's business 101. I did like one module on it, and they say like I think everyone who took it gets asked this question like, oh, what is it that McDonald's has that's valuable? It's like, oh, is it their IP, the farms? Like, no, it's land. Like McDonald's on paper should be classified as a real estate company because that's the value of their thing. It's the rent they get paid by franchise owners. That's where they make their money.
And I think that, at least in the founder, that was where they were originally becoming profitable, is off the land that they owned and not...
It's rent.
Yeah, like I say, the value in a lot of that, at least early on, before it became like this worldwide, bigger than bigger companies, like, it's just the profit was to be made on the land, and land owning is A, cheaper, and B, a lot easier.
Yeah, because all you got to do is just sit there and collect your fucking money. I'll play Monopoly.
But just like we'll go down a little bit here, Karl, because it does have a little subheader here called health improvement. And
there's a bunch of them, and again, like the Weatherspoons thing, you got to give them credit. I did research this for an article years ago, and when McDonald's say they put 100% beef in their burgers, that is true. Yeah. It's in America, it's 100% USDA beef, and in Britain, it's 100% British beef.
We did mention not long ago on another episode just the idea, and it's a very funny rumor, but the rumor that went round of actually the reason that they can say it's 100% beef is because they just buy beef from a company called 100% beef, and it's a loophole. It's like, no, it's just 100% beef.
And it's like, well, how is it so cheap? Because they own the farms and they own every step of production. So as a result, the only they keep the cost down that way. Also, their claim of having no preservatives, that is also true. Because people don't realize that salt is a preservative. So when they say no artificial preservatives, that is true. But when you say no artificial preservatives, salt is a natural preservative. You don't have to include that. That's the caveat. And salt is a very, very good preservative. And McDonald's put a lot of it in their burgers. And the funny thing is, Burger King put more salt in their burgers.
Right, yeah.
Did you know that thing about like, McDonald's food not rotting?
Yeah.
It would actually apply to Burger King's burgers more than McDonald's because they put more salt and preservatives in their food. Because McDonald's was the bigger name when that rumor went around.
Of course, yeah. And just it's very funny as well because like the health improvement stuff, it says like it's from when Steve Easterbrook became CEO of the company in 2015. But that means that they didn't, or at least it's not recorded here, they didn't notably make like a big sweeping change of health improvements when Super Size Me came out. Because again, a lot of that was basically I'm forgetting the word
bullshit.
now. Unsubstantiated claims, right? Of just everyone that tried to replicate what happened to the person in Super Size Me were completely unable to replicate the results.
Yes, you can go watch our video on that if you're so inclined. But one detail that we didn't mention in that video, because it wasn't mentioned in the wiki, but is nonetheless very important, is that Morgan Spurlock was an alcoholic, a functional alcoholic while he was making that. And a really telling moment, which means that he was lying.
Yeah, because he made it out as if every single change in his health and every decline in his health was solely due to McDonald's, when you don't know how much of that can be, at least partly due to alcohol problems.
Well, the really, really telling part is where he goes to the doctor, and the doctor looks him dead in the eye after he's been doing it for a month. And he's like, well, your liver function's completely fucking shot. And Morgan Spurlock's like, yeah, must be the McDonald's. And it's like, when he knows he's drinking like a bottle of vodka a day.
Right, yeah.
But he was, and it's like, it immediately casts aspersions on anything he wants to say, especially as what he said. He lied. He's 5,000 calories. Like, infamously, he said, I had 5,000 calories every single day. And someone calculated if you ordered a super-sized Big Mac with a full sugar drink every single day and had dessert for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you would not get to 5,000 calories. What the fuck did you eat to get to that point? And he never told anyone because what he had was 16 beers.
Yeah. And
every day.
That's the thing, right? You'd have to be drinking liters of milkshakes every day or something.
That's what, yeah.
Manage that, yeah, it would be insane.
And obviously, like, he never told anyone because he knew that if he told people what he actually ate, say, okay, so McDonald's food's probably not great for you, but neither are the 14 beers you drank.
Yeah, look, if you manage to actually exercise and like live a healthy lifestyle outside of eating McDonald's for every meal, you're gonna not be the healthiest person, but you're also not gonna gain like 30 pounds or whatever over a month that he did.
The way someone sums it up is like the guy just ate like shit for a month and stopped exercising and gained weight. What the fuck did he think was going to happen? Like, why is that a surprising thing, right? It's the thing of like calories in, calories out. That's why I said like nutrition is basically a solved science. People can, it gets overcomplicated. It's calories in, it's calories out. There's of course some outliers, some exceptions to that rule for people with very specific health conditions. But for 90% of people, if you want to lose weight,
there's also just healthier and less healthy ways to go by doing it, right?
Yeah, but it's calories in, it's calories out. It's that fucking simple. And the only people who stand to benefit from complicating it are trying to sell you something.
Yeah.
It's just as simple as that. Just fucking eat less and walk around more. Yeah. It's not difficult for the majority of people. Exactly. And that's like the caveat I was putting. Someone's like, well, what about if you have a health condition? It's like, well, I'm speaking generally about the average person. The average person doesn't have a health condition.
Yeah. And McDonald's streamlined the menu, which in the United States contained nearly 200 items. The company looked to introduce healthier options and removed high fructose corn syrup from hamburger buns. Which, I get that, like, brioche bread is a thing, right? And generally American bread is sweeter than ours, but the idea of needing to inject your bread with corn syrup is wild.
Well, that's the other thing as well, like, when I mentioned earlier about American food being just nutritionally worse. just the staples. So like, if you think like, what's a very simple meal? A cheese sandwich.
Yeah.
Right? Just the bread to make the sandwich, if you get the cheapest, shittiest British bread, is still going to be miles better than the American equivalent. Just it doesn't have as many preservatives in it. Like there's more sugar in American bread than in some British cakes. That's why a lot of British people respond that, or they note that American bread tastes like cake because there's so much sugar in bread. It tastes like our cakes.
Again, it's closer to what we would classify as brioche.
Yes, which is sweet bread, right? And
it's sweet bread, yeah. And,
I think to my friend who's a pastry chef, they came to the UK. I'd tell the story of like they walked past a Greg's and burst out laughing when they saw an iced finger, which is a hot dog bun with icing on it. Like, and it's very stupid, but I told them, like, that is, they sell them for like 30 pence.
Yeah.
And they're for like little kids. And yes, it's not cake, but it's a little bit of sugar with a little bit of carbohydrates. That's a perfectly acceptable snack. If you're not complete, if your palate hasn't been warped by everything tasting sweet.
Yeah, it's weird because what we do with the ice buns of putting the sugar on the outside is just like what Americans do, but they put the sugar on the inside, right?
Yeah.
Like, why not?
It's like people like I think it's like fairy bread, right? Or like eggy bread,
thing, yeah.
Which is like sugar on toast. Like that gets made fun of. It's like, well, how's that any different from? At least I know where the sugar come from. What the fuck is Nutella? Like what fucking what that marshmallow whip shit?
I don't know why Nutella's catching strays, Karl.
It's because Nutella is not chocolate; it's fucking hazelnuts.
Yeah,
and American Nutella is awful. But American Nutella is way worse. Have you ever had American Nutella?
No. The one thing that scares me is that apparently milk over in America lasts like weeks.
Yeah.
Like the use-by date is like weeks later or something.
Because they drink their milk their fresh gallon of milk is the equivalent of our UHT milk.
Right, yeah.
Like milk in the UK, and it's just America's big. In the UK,
yeah.
We are never within less than 50 miles in most cases of fresh milk and dairy products.
Yeah, I think
it doesn't need to be frozen or processed.
There's something to do with I think because America's so big is also why they wash their chicken eggs, right? Or eggs in general. Yeah. I don't know the specifics, but I believe.
I don't know why they wash chicken eggs. Like eggs last 6 months.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah,
eggs last fucking ages.
I think
like when you wash them, they last less.
How much they need to travel or something like that. But yeah.
Yeah, I remember telling someone this. They're like, "Oh, do you like apples last like 4 or 5 months?" Like, no, they don't. I was like, what do you think people did in the past when apples weren't growing in fields? They couldn't just go to Tesco and get some. If you put apples in like a dark sack, or like put them in like a nice like burlap sack and put them on like your cupboard or something like that, they will last months in a dry, airy location with no light. Months. Same for eggs. Eggs will last months. A lot of food lasts way longer than you expect it to.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was that did like a test where they were like testing when their eggs went bad, and like they had them for weeks or months or whatever before like the eggs actually were bad eggs, and even then they were like, they're not great tasting, but they're still edible. They're not going to kill you.
Yeah, like eggs last fucking ages.
Anyway, going back to health improvements quickly here, Karl. The company have also removed artificial preservatives from our sweet chicken nuggies, replacing chicken skin, safflower oil, and citric acid found in chicken McNuggets, pea starch, rice starch, and powdered lemon juice. So generally just, hey, it's all similar equivalents, like how many people actually notice that anything changed, and it's all done with slightly healthier equivalents, right?
Is there anything you've noticed when they made it healthy? Because the one for me is Heinz baked beans. I love baked beans, but Heinz baked beans, they changed the recipe to have the reduced salt and sugar recipe for all of their beans, and then did an extra reduced salt and sugar version. I can tell because the tomato sauce that Heinz baked beans are in is so fucking watery now.
Right, yeah.
If you make beans on toast with it, you get soggy toast.
I'm
not eating toast that's like a fucking like soiled nappy. I'm sorry.
I don't think I've eaten anything from like a restaurant, say McNuggets. I don't think I've ever tasted anything often enough that I notice when a change is made in the ingredients.
Well, sometimes like just if noticing it get worse, then demonstrably worse. Like chocolate is another one. Like I don't eat chocolate really at all, if ever. When it gets to Christmas time and I get like a roses tin or something like that, and I try one of those, like this, it tastes like chalk. And you look it up and it's like, oh yeah, the amount of cocoa powder has been reduced, and vanilla extracts is the one. Do you have a friend who works in a chocolate factory? Good old Wally.
Wally West, yeah.
That's his name. But like he was in a chocolate factory, and I remember him telling me like the thing of like, yes, vanilla's like going extinct, and if you don't, and chocolate manufacturers are scrambling because if you don't put vanilla in chocolate, it tastes like shit.
Yeah.
And we're scrambling to figure out an alternative because vanilla costs so much.
Well, it's one thing that's been kind of wild over the past, I think, like year maybe less than in the UK, is that one small change, and I say small, I don't think it's a great change, but it's something. But there was a change to how much space chicken has to have to be considered free roam, which is still a tiny amount of like, it's like 7 meters squared instead of 6 meters squared, or some diabolically small change. But again, some amount of progress. But what that means is, okay, it doesn't sound like much when it's like an extra meter square, but when you're farming thousands, dozens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of chickens, and you only have a set amount of space, that's a significant difference, right? That
when you scale it up, right? Yeah.
When you scale it up, that's what, like, I don't know the exact math, but like maybe like a sixth of your chicken production just gone.
Yeah, it's like ingredients wise, like I mentioned chocolate earlier. So our friend talks about it's the Kit Kats. Someone at the company had a great idea of, well, if we scrape the logo for Kit Kat, if we like program the machines that do that to just scrape it like 1 or 2 millimeters deeper, that shaves like fractions of a gram off a Kit Kat. And you think, well, why would you do that? Why would you bother shaving like a couple of fractions of a gram of chocolate out of a Kit Kat? Because if you do that to 1 million Kit Kats, you've saved like several thousand kilos of chocolate.
Yeah, when you're working on that level of production, say for example, if you took 10% of a burger out of a McDonald's burger, and that's like, oh, well, that's only a couple of grams of a patty gone. No one's going to notice a couple of grams of a patty gone, realistically. But that all of a sudden means that you're saving a couple of grams out of the billions of burgers that you're producing every year.
It's also as well why you have like, it happened recently. Like, do you know that like shit Elon Musk was running where they're trying to
like Coke, mushrooms, everything on the
ketamine, yeah, that's the thing he's doing, but that company's running where it's trying to like make the government more efficient. Like one of the things that people highlighted as like only an idiot would cancel this is bean research. And like he advertised it as, look, we're cancelling several $1 million that was being earmarked for bean research. And to a layman, that does sound stupid. Then like a bean scientist came in and went, a couple $1 million is actually a fucking steal when the research was how to increase the yield of bean crops by several percent, which again sounds like a small amount. But if we can increase the yield of bean crops across all of America by several percent, it will amount to hundreds of millions of like savings.
Yeah, that's like a massive boon to the economy, right?
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty good deal for like a couple $1 million. A couple $1 million to make a few like 100 million seems like a pretty good deal. But when you frame it as bean research, it's very easy to convince a layperson it's wasted money.
Save money now. Because that's another thing that's a problem with a lot of political parties having 4 years to make changes, is that
immediate results.
You have to have immediate changes to look good in that 4 years, whereas most actually impactful good changes that you can make going to take a lot longer than 4 years to see the results of. But then you don't want to make those because then a different party might be in power when that crop is yielded, say for example,
and take credit for it.
And they can take credit for, look how much better the beans have gotten since we've taken power.
The fascinating thing about that is the literal dawn of democracy in ancient Greece. They already knew this.
Yeah.
Because there's like quotes from ancient Greek philosophers of like, we'll know when we succeed as a democracy when old men plant trees they will never sit in the shade of. As the idea of like when old men start making decisions that will benefit future generations, knowing that they'll never see the benefits themselves.
Yeah.
It was only a couple thousand years ago. Maybe we'll figure it out in
Well,
another
we
couple
still
thousand.
haven't seemingly figured it out. We haven't figured it out as people in general, because how many people do you know that voted to leave Brexit and aren't here today?
Yep.
Which
It's
is not great to think about, but like a lot of people are not alive enough to not alive long enough to see the repercussions of that awful action that a lot of people didn't want to happen.
yeah, it makes me think about like in regards to that bean thing. There's literally a tweet that summed it up like a couple of years ago, making fun of the idea of like, and it's the joking tweet something like me in parentheses about to like put back our like agriculture 5,000 years by making fun of your crop rotation idea. Lol, you think the beans need to take turns? And that's effectively what the government's doing. Like,
Yeah.
crop rotation is a thing. It's like you plant different crops at different times of year because they require different nutrients from the soil, and it categorically, demonstrably increases the yield of each crop by allowing them to take turns. But you can frame that in a way that makes it sound silly, right? Like, lol, you think the beans need to take turns. When you're something like that, oh, yeah, that's stupid, let's not do it. It's like, but it works.
And one last thing I want to talk about McDonald's, Karl.
Yeah.
I know
it's got weird.
We've been
We've
going some places, but just the idea of the McDonald's like play places, which is a name that they came up with in 1987 for them, but they had like playgrounds for a lot longer than that in general.
Yeah, that's the people get nostalgic for these. Like, remember when they used to have like Nintendo 64s and there was Smash Bros on it? It's like, yeah, that was fun, but now I've got Smash Bros at home. Give me my fucking hamburger.
But I will say, I do think that it's a shame that these like play places no longer exist, and it does say that the playgrounds used to be called playlands and were outside, and there were concerns that the playgrounds were dangerous, so McDonald's then moved them inside and made them out of softer materials such as plastic instead of metal. And it is funny how many things are like playgrounds that are just made out of fucking pure metal that kids are expected to play on, right?
And here's the thing. I'm not upset that like McDonald's doesn't have play areas anymore. I'm upset that for years the only place a kid could expect to go to a play area was a McDonald's. In an ideal world, that would just be a thing that the government would provide, right? Of a safe place for children to be children. Like a local park or a place to go play football, or is this communism?
I don't think it's communism. I think
that's what weirdos online would call it, right?
Yeah, I think it's straight into that. Like, how dare you goddamn liberals, like wanting people to get free play areas for their children, you monsters.
Yeah, so I don't mind a small pool, like the classic ones, right? Like instead of having like healthcare, why don't we all just buy insurance for each other and why don't we all pool our money together? That's what taxes pay for.
Yeah, if only we had one big GoFundMe that anyone could take contributions from, right?
Yeah, I do see that periodically of people getting nostalgic for like, oh, McDonald's having play areas, and it's like it feels really dystopian to me to be nostalgic for a corporation providing a place for children to play.
Yeah,
so they associate, and obviously there's the insidious aspect of McDonald's using that to psychologically have children from a very young age associate their brand, their company, their food with childhood nostalgia, and the fact you can see it playing out in real time.
Yeah, I mean, I have good memories of being in McDonald's playpens. Or play places, as they were called when we were kids. And
it's some Black Mirror shit.
I understand that side of things, but from the less cynical point of view, I'm just like, I'd rather than be there than not, where now everything is just it's truly kind of getting to dystopian levels with how clinical McDonald's have become in terms of their branding, right? Just
the pursuit of profit as basically created a monster.
And it's like when you look at just so bland looking. There's no fun or colour in any of the restaurants anymore. They're just grey and green boxes now.
And that is also dystopian, but that's a boring dystopia. One of my favorite subreddits of just, yeah, it's chronicling the idea that not only are we living in a dystopia, it's also very fucking boring. We're not going to get cool cyberpunk shit because that's colourful and wacky, because that costs money. It's more likely it's going to be just slate grey,
Like,
boring corporate.
we as a civilization are trending towards grey boxes as everything we live in.
Everything will be rectangle. Nothing will have colour because colour costs money. Nothing will have personality because personality takes effort to formulate.
And on that very positive note, I think it's time for us to take a break and bring Karl back into the mix. And
Right, back in a sec.
can you remember the Karl's name to give credit?
Ruthie.
Ruthie. Apparently my mute button. This the one thing I hate about this mic is every time I hear the clunk, there's like a 50-50 chance that the mute button just did nothing.
Yeah. Although I am a fan of those ones where it's like, oh, it's so good, you just tap it to turn it off.
I want those ones.
The amount of times I've seen like clips of people accidentally tapping it by like walking past it and not realizing.
But at the same time, I also accidentally mute or don't mute myself or whatever way because I just hear like the big clunk.
I never want to automate anything like that due to the amount of stories of streamers not turning their shit off.
I mean,
every time I finish a stream, I unplug everything because I'm not gonna be one of those dudes who's just like on fucking clips of like, this dude just be like, he just whipped his knob out 5 seconds after thinking he went.
Do you whip your knob out 5 minutes after you turn the camera off?
No, I walk around in my room with my knob out. My house, I could do what I want.
It reminds me of the part in One Family where Alex comes back and she's like, do you know that your webcam's on right now? And it's like, what?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was only when I press this button that my webcam's on. I thought the green light was just like saying that the camera's working. And she's just been like streaming herself, just potentially getting out of the shower into her, like walking into a room and getting changed and stuff. It's like, oh no.
They predicted OnlyFans. Good for them.
But yeah, I do wonder what the timeline is on that. But yeah, it's interesting. Like before we go into your week, like I believe like OnlyFans nowadays, like 10 years later, is worth like multi-billions and is preparing to get sold or something. And it's like
whoever buys that is going to run it into the fucking ground.
Yeah. I bet time that like they turn around, one of the credit card companies like MasterCard or whatever were like, actually, we're not supporting anything like that. You know, any sexual acts on OnlyFans or whatever, and immediately just that they had to reverse that so quickly.
Lost 70% of their business, yeah.
Insane.
It's like Tumblr, where I think it was Yahoo bought Tumblr and went, okay, get rid of all the porn off Tumblr, and lost like 50% of their user base overnight and never recovered. And like I think a couple of years later, the person who bought, sold it, bought it back, and brought porn back for a fraction of the price.
Return of the porn.
Many such cases in business of person not understanding what made business popular, buying business, removing things that made it popular or why it worked. Like restaurants, right? How many Gordon Ramsay episodes? Like, yeah, we bought this really successful restaurant and cut back on all the stuff that made it popular. Why is it failing?
Yeah. Oh, but Karl, have you got any housekeeping for us before we move on to your...
Besides just promoting the usual, go check out our streams, our links, our Discords. Also, I have a Blue Sky account now. So you need to follow me on there so I can legitimize it so I can start messaging people to appear on this podcast.
That sounded really weird for a second, but yes. We are currently in conversation to try and get people on the podcast, but we haven't got anything confirmed for this month. And
I'm speaking to someone tomorrow, yeah.
I think what I was going to suggest to you, I guess I can hold your feet to the fire, so to speak, is that I guess because obviously the reason why we can do the guest podcast and pay people for appearances is because we get support on Patreon to pay people to appear.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just going to suggest hey, if we can't actually get a guest for the month, should we just say that instead of that money going to us, we just donate it to a charity anyway?
Donate it to a charity. So
at least that means if we can't get a guest on per month, the money that might potentially go to charity is not disappearing.
So we're not like pocketing the money. So it gives us no incentive to like, oh no, we didn't do it this month, so I guess we get to pocket the money that would have been spent like paying a guest for their time.
Yeah.
Joe is that's bad business, Lucas. Because a
That
real
is
good business
terrible business. Yeah.
Like, we had an entire series on Fact Fiend about how not to do business, right? And
Yeah.
I always made the joke. Seemingly that was never caught on by a lot of people. Of the joke is that I'm making a series called How Not to Do Business, and most of the entries are me not making as much money as I could have done if I just shut the fuck up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the one who's bad at business.
Yeah, like that was kind
about
of
me.
The double-sided coin of it, right? Is realistically the ones not being good at business are the ones who are turning down sponsorships to call out big companies.
Yes. That was always the running gag on that. But yeah, I've got to promote my I'm gonna say OnlyFans then. That's not for a while. That's not for we really need money.
All has not yet revealed the Smallwood.
Hey.
Hey, that was your joke, not mine.
Yeah, I say if anyone wants to see it, all you got to do is just date me for 6 months. Slide into my DMs, form like a long-lasting relationship with me, and then,
or just give it 6 months until Wiki Weekends is burned down to the ground by one of us saying the wrong thing.
Yeah, probably one of these jokes, right? Joking about whipping a dick out. But yeah, do you know that like Karl's made a joke about slipping someone a length and just like Lucas has lost it? I'll never forget when like I was dating my ex and I had like her photo as my background. And I met my brother. I don't see him that often. But no, have you got a missus then? I went, yeah. So is that on your background? I went, yeah. And he went, oh, I'd slip her a length.
Anyway, you can also follow me on Blue Sky. I will update the links in the description because Karl has yet to like send me his Blue Sky account.
I follow you.
Link.
It's fine. It's just at Karl Smallwood.
But it's like it's different with Blue Sky, right? Because you can change your link to be like Blue Sky at karlsmallwood.com and shit like this. I don't know how it works.
Well, someone just followed me right now. So if it's someone in this chat, post the link in the chat, right?
There we go. And yeah, you can also just follow me. I should be Legend of Kanto on Blue Sky. And just, as Karl said, like right now, because we both evacuated Twitter, we just don't have accounts with any followers to message people anymore.
So we look like the scam accounts, right? Of like, hey, yeah. Even though we're offering people money.
Yeah,
like
we are.
Scam account. But that makes it look like more of a scam, right? Because offering people money makes it seem like more of a scam.
That's how you get them in to begin with. Of like, hey, did you know that you could like appear on a podcast and earn some money? And it's like, all of a sudden, 3 emails like you're being asked to click a weird link. Oh no.
Lucas just sat there with like this money of like, why does no one want this?
Please. But anyway, Karl, what have you brought for today's discussion? Because I don't know what you're talking about today.
Well, yeah, here's how we do things on Wiki Weekends. Normally, like myself or Lucas, we're going to lead the conversation. We'll tell the other what they brought. And sometimes, not all the time, the other person will go through their list of like pre-selected topics and pick one that is thematically appropriate.
A lot of the time, the reason I know what Karl's talking about for the day is because I've gone, I don't think my subject's good for a thumbnail. What are you talking about?
Yeah. So when Lucas told me we were going to talk about McDonald's and business, I thought, well, that conversation will probably talk a lot about just, McDonald's is this soulless billion-dollar corporation. Let's talk about a game that directly, challenges that idea. And specifically a character from that game. The character of Abe from Abe's Odyssey.
Oh, yes, you did mention at some point, Abe, yeah.
So, what do you think about some Abe? He's like, he is. Because we mentioned him last week. That's what inspired me, like, of a PlayStation rep. Where the fuck was Abe in Sony Smash?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's where I think one of us at least brought up Abe. Of like, yeah, they were missing as well. They were quite a popular. It was quite a popular game, Abe's Odyssey on the PS1. I don't know how popular like Abe is considered as a character that has held the test of time. And
they did the remake, right? Because they did the remake game, which had lots and looked really fun.
There's remake and there's the sequel, and the thing that threw me off is the third game, where it's like a first-person shooter game that apparently a lot of people like, but just is not what I wanted out of that franchise.
That's the thing. Like, I like the Oddworld games because I just like Abe. I like Abe, and I like that very first game. And I did play New and Tasty, and New and Tasty like, man, this game's super awesome. It's so much more difficult than I remember. Because as a kid, I just didn't want to solve the puzzles. I just ran through most of the levels.
Yeah.
When you're an adult and you realize how challenging some aspects of that game is, like in Abe's Odyssey, did you know there is literally a secret on the very first screen? Second one was a secret.
Not aware of this,
The
no.
literal first screen, if you hold down the second you start the level, Abe will open up like a hatch, and there's a secret puzzle that frees like 15 Mudokons. Screen 1. Right, but speaking of Abe, we have a quote here from director Flegg talking about Abe. I'm totally screwed. My career is over, and it's all that blue bastard's fault. Abe, known as Stitch Lips and Abraham Law, didn't know he had a full name. Abraham Law is the first protagonist to appear in the Oddworld franchise. Abe is a Mudokan, the native race of the continent of Mudos, who is recognized by his species as a messiah and their liberator, unless you get the bad end.
Right,
and don't rescue
you
any
don't
of his
save
people.
enough of them. Right. And
despite Abe's skepticism... Oh, go on.
I was going to say, it is notable. I was like, when you said a quote, I was like, Abe's got his mouth stitched up. Like, this is a conversation that is not part of the podcast, but we were talking earlier about, like, the Deadpool thing of, like, stitching up the mercs with a mouth.
Yep.
Mouth. And it's like, yeah, they stitched his mouth up, Karl. He can't talk.
Yeah, you can talk a little bit. Do you have a favourite Abe quote?
The only thing I remember Abe doing is making weird noises. Do you not?
He talks, like, follow me. Because that's one of the key elements that made the game so interesting. It's one of the reasons I love the Abe's Odyssey series, or Abe's Odyssey, the game, and the Oddworld games as a whole, but I prefer that very first one, and the second one. Is just the idea of it's a puzzle game where you can talk to the people and help you solve the puzzle. I always like that element of, like, Abe can just talk to people like, hey, shut up and help me with this.
I can only think of when it's like the follow me kind of vibes is
follow me.
When I think of just, in Zelda Wind Waker, when you get Link to be like, come on!
Yeah. Like, I love all of Abe's quotes. Like, I just love his little laugh as well, like, I can't do the quote. I can't do the Abe laugh or any of his quotes, but Joe can. The guy who created Abe, Lorne Lanning, because that's his voice. His voice actor is his creator. So when you hear Abe speak, that's literally the voice of Abe. Well, that's literally the voice of his creator speaking through him.
Interesting, yeah. I didn't know that. I do think, like, I don't know what it is, but the vibe was off when I watched interviews about Lorne Lanning talking about Oddworld Soulstorm, I think it was called, which is like the one that was on PS4, but they just come across as maybe a bit too big for the bridges kind of vibe, because they were talking about how Oddworld is one of, like, the greatest games of all time and one of the most beloved franchises ever and all this jazz.
I will say, though, he has earned that, because the first Abe's Odyssey game, I'm going to call it Abe's Odyssey, even though I know it's like the Oddworld series, because just to me, that's the game. Like, that is a legitimately fascinating and fantastic game. You've earned that, right? It's like, if a musician can coast off a one-hit wonder for 30 fucking years, if you make one of the genuinely most interesting, fascinating games with a lovable character in it, you can coast off that for a decade.
You can coast, but talking about it as if it's one of the most beloved game franchises that everyone definitely played and remembers. Like,
but then again, if you're selling it,
of course. It came across as a really weird way to sell your game, and at least the interviews I saw. But yeah,
there's a lot of interviews that he does seem like a very genuine person. Like, one of my favorite quotes from a game developer is from Lorne Lanning, where he talks about how, speaking of corporate businesses and interest, try to, like, make it different. When he was making Abe's Odyssey, like, someone at Sony's like, give Abe a gun, give him a gun. He's like, I don't want to give Abe a gun. And after a while, the executive's like, why don't you want to give him a gun? Games with guns do better. Because if I give the player a gun, that's how they'll solve every problem. That's not the game I'm making. And the fact he literally stuck to his guns and refused to put guns in the game, except for very specific gameplay moments when you control a slick.
I was going to say, there are the enemies that you can mind control that have guns, right?
Yes, and you can solve puzzles with those guns, but most of the time it is the wrong option. Either way, so Abe's skepticism and reluctance in being despite Abe's skepticism and reluctance in being the chosen one, he manages to liberate a large portion of his species from Gluckan oppression.
And
unless you get the bad end.
Do you like any game where you are just encouraged to help hordes of weirdos, like saving the
Yeah.
Madokans? Like, they're just cool little design, and I like just the idea of similar to a Rayman at the time, right? Where you just run around freeing these little guys, these little goofy guys from cages.
A very common trend in a lot of like early platformers and stuff, right? Like Sonic's all about
Sonic the
like
Hedgehog.
freeing
Yeah.
animals from Dr. Robotnik. There's a lot of like early video games that are surprisingly anti-capitalist in their tone. Like
Yeah.
Sonic, right, is fighting against industrialization, the use of nature as a tool.
Yeah.
Abe is like he literally works in a meat packing plant,
Yeah,
which
this is
and the
where you get the 100% beef from.
yeah, like the 100 Mudokan beef, and like the opening cutscene to Abe's Odyssey is really harrowing because like Abe's like walking around the factory, like yeah, I sweep floors in a meat packing plant. It's not great. Here's a couple of our like products. We have like scrab cakes, paramite munchies. We used to do like meat munchies, but the animal that we made them from went extinct. It's not subtle of like these people who've like taken over the planet have like literally stripped of its resources, and he falls into a board meeting where the people in charge are like, okay, profits are down, we need a new source of meat. And they just put a picture of a fucking Mudokan on screen, like, yeah, we're gonna make Mudokan cakes. We're gonna just fucking feed Abe's species into the fucking meat grinder and feed them to other people.
I always remember when I was a kid, I loved the film Chicken Run. And
Yeah.
that scene where, or the multiple scenes where Ginger gets caught in like the pie making facility, the pie
Yep.
machine. I always imagined playing that as a video game level, and there probably was a cheap tie-in game right at some point,
Yeah.
but yeah, I always like the idea of trying to like the a meat facility as a way to get around it. I remember um playing some of the Lego Star Wars games and just Star Wars games where there's I think it's episode 2 where they're going through like the production line and
Yep.
they get their arm stuck and things. It always feels very video gamey.
Yes. And it's just like I said, second one, super anti-capitalist. Of like, I think to the point where the affiliation of the Gluckans is literally called the Industrialists.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah, and they talk about how like they're complete. They wear like the big suits and stuff and the giant big heads. Underneath that, they're just like pathetic and all wasted away. So all they care
Right.
about is hoarding wealth, so they ignore like everything else, and everything they put on is a front. They're the reason they look so big and intimidating because that's how they present themselves. They're actually physically weak, and if the Muldokans all banded together and worked together, they could easily overthrow them.
it's a I always think of that Bug's Life scene
Yeah,
where he's like, "Oh look, I'm
like
gonna
the
throw
film,
like
like ant unions, right?
yeah, I'm gonna throw this one bit of feed at you. Does that hurt?" And it's like, "No."
No,
And then he just opens up the entire bottle and it just crushes it. Like,
yeah.
see, this is what the ants could do if they figured this out.
If the ants formed a union, we'd be fucked.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many like bits of media for children are based like form a fucking union. Like if Abe was in a union, they won't be feeding his mates into the meat grinding machine, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's either like don't get traditional jobs and follow your dreams, or at least if you do get a regular job, form a fucking
Get
union.
get a fucking union. We're stronger together.
Yeah. And just
But yeah, we have some basic biographical information about Abe here. So his species is a Mudokan. His sex is male. His affiliation is a native of Mudos or a tree hugger. His role is the protagonist. His occupation was a slave slash floor waxer. Formerly, current occupation, the Messiah. Hell of a like upgrade, right? His age is ambiguous, but he's variously described as being between 16 and 33. The millennial icon that he is. His height is 5'8", and his voice actor is Lorne Lanning.
got more in common than I thought with Abe. Just 5'8" and 33. Close to myself.
Hey, Matt, you need to fucking get that union, baby.
What, do me and you form a union against
Yeah.
us? Like, how does that work?
The best thing about like Abe's story as well is like, do you know how they win? Of like how they eventually get the Gluckans to like stop literally feeding his people into the meat grinder? Is they all like get together and all that like and pray so their heads explode. Which I think is, just a really nice lesson for life, right? Of all those like people out there who own these giant businesses that, pillage the land and scrape it for resources. If we all collectively work together and just really hope that Elon Musk gets a brain like hemorrhage, we can make it happen, right? I don't think if we just all collectively will for Donald Trump to have a heart attack, maybe it'll happen.
Maybe if we all like sit here and pray just hard enough, then it'll go down.
Yeah, because that's what happens. They all just pray together and give Abe superpowers, and he fucking just murks everyone. It's great.
Yeah, I do think like it is wild, right? How much just well, you look at Elon Musk being an absolute dickhead and a massive problem, and you just think, well, how long before it all just implodes? And it took months for them to fuck it all up, and now there's like headlines of is Musk getting like deported from the country as well?
There's like basically like as bad as Elon Musk has been, he has been incredibly useful at discounting the myth of like business being a meritocracy where just the people who are the most deserving and most able and most competent rise to the top. Because you could put literally any person on the street in charge of Twitter and they could double that company's stock value in one day. And all they'd have to do is undo every decision he's made.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
They would double the value of that company overnight just by undoing everything he's done.
And Dragon in the West comes in with a super chat. Just say, not to make this political, we're fine with making this political in this instance.
All aspects of life are political. We're talking about a game that, like, the opening cutscene is, oh my god, if you work for a company, they will feed you into a literal meat grinder if it means they earn more money.
Yes, yeah.
They will feed your bones to your children if it makes them a quick buck. They
will, but what it says here, but my union's regional president, David Huerta, is being held by ICE. All I got to say is union strong, and 100% union strong, and I'm glad to see that, like, there's been so many
together.
people. Yeah.
Strong.
There's just all the protesters out there, like, I hope the people being held by ICE, and I hope the protesters as well, like, are all okay. And I'm just glad to see, like, a pushback against the horrible fucking things that they're trying to get away with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just, yeah, 100%.
Like I said, many bits of media directly deal with or allude to this sort of thing. I said the Abe's Odyssey, the first cutscene is just Abe realizing, oh, my capitalist overlords would literally grind me into paste and feed me to someone. Doesn't matter how hard a worker I am, they'd still fucking grind me into mudduck and paste and feed me to someone.
Yeah, and you mentioned a lot of games are like this around that time, and they're still awesome now, but I think one of my favorite game series, like Ratchet and Clank, is a constant parody on capitalism and things like that, and it obviously depended on the game, but like the villain of the first game is the head of a company.
It's to the point where evil businessman was a stock character trope for like, and continues to be now, right? In movies of just like, well, how do you get across, like, especially in children's movies, right? How many children's movies have the bad guy just be a businessman who wants to take over insert thing and doesn't understand it?
Yeah,
he wants to fire everybody, right? He wants to shut down the factory, or he wants to take over the hockey team.
Yeah, even like fucking Final Fantasy VII, right? That is a game where
the planet's dying, Cloud.
The planet is dying. The evil corporation are like literally harvesting life from the planet, and
they are bleeding the earth dry.
Ultimately, the final villain ends up being fucking Sephiroth, and you essentially fight God. But guess who made Sephiroth?
Yeah.
But the evil company did it, and the Shinra, the evil company, the actual evil behind this whole mess. Yeah, again, it's just a big corporation.
Even in a more abstract sense of like how many games and pieces of media have the villain just be some sort of organized group of people who hold power? God of War, who's Kratos like attacking? The gods. Why? Because they have an unearned place of superiority over other people.
I'd say mostly unearned. There is an element of being earned when you have literal god powers.
Deities, yeah, but like I said, there's so many things that can be broadly interpreted that way, which is interesting, and it makes it more and more frustrating that someone in our Discord the other day is asking about like media literacy. It's like it might be overused, but it's still frustrating that it's a dirty word. People see like media literacy as a dirty word or a pejorative. It's like, why is it a dirty word? Or you see it as a negative to understand things better and be able to pass the intent of the creator when consuming content.
I mean, that's the thing is like we constantly will sit here and beat the drum right of unions are good, big corporations are not gonna give a shit about you in the long run. Like
They don't care.
they might appear to care for a while, but generally speaking, they pretend to care because it's profitable. And the moment that changes, they will too.
It's like the thing, right, of a minimum wage. A minimum wage, if your company pays you minimum wage, that means that they would, if they could pay you less, they would, but they legally can't.
Well, it's one thing I spoke about on stream not long ago. I saw a video a while back where someone shared their paycheck and they were like, "Look, I worked like 70 hours
Mhm.
and I got paid $0 by my company who employ me because I declared enough tips as my money for the week or month or whatever that
Mhm.
I don't have to get paid by my company anymore." And it's like, literally, that means that you're asking people to pay your wages instead of the person that employs you, and that's wild to me.
Yeah, and there is some, and the reason what muddies that a lot is there are some situations, rare exceptions where that's the case, like barbershops, right? Where you pay the owner of the building to rent your chair. Like
Generally, that's how a lot of barbers will work, and I don't
that's an
know
exception
in
to that
Scotland.
rule, right? Of going to a place of business, like why, like so I'm going in there for free, and other people are paying my wages. It's like
But that's
it's not
you
the same, yeah.
that's people
It's
paying you for your service.
for a service, which is technically what's happening with a waiter and stuff. But like American service industry is fucked
It's
all to
fucked
hell
up
anyway.
because I don't care. There's no amount of money that someone working in hospitality could earn as tips where I would then agree, yeah, they've earned enough. They don't need more money for their work.
At least minimum wage, right?
But like, I would say, if they earned $1 million in fucking in fines,
You
in
pay me for my
tips,
time, right?
it's like you're still employing that person. Fucking pay them yourself.
It's like I remember having an argument with my boss once, like over 15 minutes on my paycheck, or like pay slip. Sorry, slip to like Americanisms there,
Yeah, yeah.
and they got really like fucking arsey with me. Like, why do you give a shit? It's like £2. Right? It's my £2. If like, can I go take it out of a till? If you do that, you're stealing.
Yeah.
But you take it out of my wages, and it's fine. I take it out of a till, I get fired. You take it out of my wages and refuse to give it to me. I'm being unreasonable.
And obviously, there's a lot you could do, but you'd have to go into like the legal system to
And
fight
that's the thing,
a
like,
£2, right?
yeah, and it's like, is it worth fighting for £2? Well, your time is worth more than that, but it's the principle, but also the fact that my boss knows that's the case and doesn't and feels entitled. So it's like, fuck, speaking of which, right. So Abe, we're going to talk about like, his name now. So Abe's name had a rocky history with many iterations. The Art of Oddworld Inhabitants details the surprisingly action-packed story of how Abe became Abe. Was it destiny the name Abe was chosen? It seems that way when taking into account the instant appeal the name had. Everyone seemed to agree. This poor schmuck was Abe, but the naming process had its ups and downs. Appleman, Abraham Law, Aben, Prophet, and Monkfish were just some of the names under consideration for Oddworld's first hero. Once decided, though, it seemed perfect. However, one day, disaster struck. Word got around the studio that his name was going to be changed to Monkfish. No one knew why. Was it for legal reasons? Did Lorne go on a fishing trip? Why? A few of the female staffers conspire to stop this atrocity. No way was he going to be called Monkfish. The word Abe was printed on a cutout on hundreds of pieces of paper. The little papers with the word Abe were placed all over the office for Lorne to see. The men's bathroom, the kitchen, in Lorne's protein shake canister, his office, under his mouse, his phone, his chair, even in his wallet. It was on his desk. Anywhere Lorne would look, the word Abe would be staring back at him. Messages were left on his voicemail. Abe. The gals felt triumphant. They did everything they could to save their beloved Abe. The next day, they found out that prior to the revolt, Lorne had already decided to keep the name Abe. Destiny be thy master. Finally, the production staff had a name for the character they drew, animated, and brought to life.
I'm not gonna lie, I always assumed it was as simple as he's called Abe because he frees slaves.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things. That's why everyone thought it's so perfect, right?
Yeah.
Abraham is the biblical Abraham from the Book of Genesis, as it mentions here. Also, Abraham Lincoln. Plus, well, he just looks like an Abe.
It just suits him as a character, yeah, but I genuinely
Yeah,
thought it was just, well, you're freeing slaves, and Abraham Lincoln, like, I don't know the history of them as a person, but generally credited as, like, a person freeing slaves, right?
yeah. And appearance-wise, Abe is distinct in the fact that his skin is a shade of purplish blue rather than the neutral green tone of his fellow Mudokons. Mudokons are chameleon-like in nature, with their skin color reflecting their inner mood. Abe's blue skin, which is pretty much a permanent trait, is representative of the fact that he is very sad.
God, that's
So
like,
Abe is just permanently sad. So that's why he's blue.
that's inside out levels, where just all the
He's just
emotions are
sad.
coloured. Like, sadness is just blue, right?
Are you ready though, Lucas? His lips were sewn together as a child by his mother, so it wasn't done by the corporate overlords, the Mudokan Queen, because he often cried and would have been killed for these disturbances while hiding in the woods. His stitches have since been loosened, giving the ability to speak once again. Even at the urging of the masked shaman, Abe refused to cut them, as they're the only memories he or anyone else has of his mother. He wears a simple brown loincloth.
I did think that I saw in the trailer for Soul fucking. I can't remember what it's called. Like, I was about to say Soulsborne, but that's what people say for the FromSoft stuff. Whatever that game was, the most recent game, I thought I remember seeing,
Mhm.
like, his stitches get caught, but might be wrong.
Maybe that's one of the plot line, right? But you have personality. Abe is clumsy, gullible, and naive, but he's still kind-hearted and gentle. He has a very cheerful and optimistic personality, yet is also somewhat desensitized from being a slave, as many horrifying concepts don't upset him. For example, in Abe's Exodus, where he encounters a blind Mudokan and fails to notice his sewn shut eyes, he accidentally kills him. Abe merely felt embarrassed, only commenting that he forgot the Mudokan was blind.
Oh.
In game, he tends to react to accidentally murdering his fellow Mudokons with a mere oops, which is indicative of the fact that just life in Rutcher Farms is fucking brutal and he sees his people get killed all the time.
Yeah, I mean, there is a certain point where you reach, like, you become desensitized, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, I guess he's just seen enough of his fellow Madokans just get thrown into the grinder. He's like, oh no, not again.
Not again. And it does mention, though, that after being made aware of the extent of the Glucken's crimes against his people, he becomes incredibly emotionally shaken. And that's the great moment where you escape from Rutcher Farms and he looks up into the sky. And it was always his belief that he is a slave in a factory. The Gluckens, the big corporate overlords, they own the planet. The first time he looks at the open sky, he looks at the moon and he holds his hand up, and the moon has a print of his hand in it. And it's like, oh, my people built, like, this is my people's planet, and it's outsiders who've come and enslaved us. And that's when he becomes furious and seeks to free as many of his people as he can. And that's like the twist where if you don't free enough of your people, it's like, oh fuck. Yeah. Yeah.
It is brutal where you can have a game like that where the bad ending is just, I'm sorry you didn't save your own race of people.
Yeah, they just let him die. So the bad ending in Abe is that they just let him fucking die because he didn't save enough people. It's rough, but at the same time, can you imagine, like, if you were one of, like, Abe's supposed to be our savior, he let 300 slaves die to save his own skin? Fuck him.
Yeah,
Right?
at that point, it's hard to form a union with the person who keeps murdering people with you.
Like, maybe we should wait for someone else who's, like, slightly less, who's slightly more empathetic to the struggles of the people.
It's the Lord Farquaad, isn't it? Many of you may die, but that's a risk I'm willing to take.
Yeah. It's like, I remember it was like Mick Lynch, like, you know, like, speaking of unions in the UK, where he's like fighting for the train,
Yeah.
for trains, right? And the news kept trying to frame it. It was like, do you know Mick Lynch lives in like a 5-bedroom house? And everyone saw through it immediately. Of like, well, the guy who owns the fucking Telegraph lives in a 15-bedroom house. At least Mick Lynch wants me to move into a house the same size as his.
Exactly. At least
Right?
he's fighting for everybody else to have equal opportunities to also live in 5-bedroom houses.
Yeah. I guess I'd be like remiss if I didn't mention possibly one of the most wholesome stories in regards to Abe's Odyssey and the character of Abe. So you familiar with this?
Potentially, I'm not sure where this is going.
I'm just gonna have to look up the guy now.
Paul Lanning.
It's not Lorne Lanning, no, but Lorne Lanning has told the story, and he supposedly tells it best. So I'll be doing him a disservice. So
Yeah, this may be a story that you have like mentioned in the past, but as I say, I don't currently know when you ask me that where this is going. So
yes, I have talked about it on Fact Fiend in the past, but I'll recount the details now. So I'm just going to be reading from my own fucking article. I'm allowed to do that. It's mine. So
this is plagiarism, Karl. This is on a separate channel.
So, in 1998, Lorne Lanning and the other members of the Oddworld team received a handwritten 6-page long letter from an adorable old man called Alfred Gamble. In this letter, Gamble detailed how his wife of many years had recently passed from a long and debilitating illness, which had somewhat understandably left him feeling crushingly depressed, listless, and pissed off at the world. So much so that his remaining family and friends had stopped talking to him altogether, and he began to genuinely contemplate shooting himself in the head with his old service revolver to end it all. However, for some reason, Gamble literally found himself unable to pull the trigger, which baffled him because, as far as he could tell, he had nothing left to live for. After some reflection, Gamble realised that he still had a few £100 left in his bank account and surmised that the reason he couldn't shoot himself is because if he did, in that exact moment, the taxman would get some of his money. It's that thing as well, like, it's my money, I earned it, I should get to spend it on whatever fucking bullshit I want, right? So, in a move we deeply respect. Also, fun fact, I wrote every Fact Fiend article with, like, the we, instead of, like, even though I wrote everything, because it just makes you sound less of an arsehole. Writer's tip. If you write it and use we instead of I, it makes it sound like a team effort. But if I wrote every article as I, it makes it sound like, oh, well, you didn't write everything on your website. It's like, but I did, though. Anyway.
Like, just find my way into the website and create a fake article, byline on it.
So in a move we deeply respect, Gamble decided to spend every penny he had on frivolous, pointless shit so that nobody but him would get any of his money. Something that led to him buying a PlayStation and a copy of Abe's Odyssey. And the reason why is that he said, one, I've no idea what a PlayStation is. It's stupid. Why not? Also, apparently, he looked at a copy of Abe's Odyssey and he saw Abe's face staring back at him like this sad piece of shit character. And he just said, that's me. That's what I feel like. And Lucas, I'm sending you a picture of Alfred Gamble. He wasn't wrong, was he?
I mean, could maybe slap that on the front of Abe's Odyssey and get away with it.
Like, here's a picture of it. He wasn't lying, was he? That is him. Right?
It's very funny as well, because of how big Abe's eyes are and the massive size of his glasses. Like,
yeah. It looks like him, right? And Alfred Gamble said, like, in his letter, I looked at the cover and went, that's me. That's Abe. Right? That's how I feel right now. So he bought a PlayStation, he bought that game, and what he said he was going to do is go home, plug it in, play it, and then shoot himself in the fucking head. However, this plan was scuppered when Gamble watched the opening cutscene, the one where Abe, like, discovers the mystery of the game and just falls on his ass, and he laughed.
I have.
And he said,
Alphonse.
Good old Alfred, right? And Gamble said, I laughed at that opening cutscene, and it was the first time I had laughed since my wife died. And in that moment, he just decided, I'm going to live. If there's something out there that I'd never, like he said, when he played the game, he never thought he'd like it. If there was something that he never experienced, that he never thought he'd like, that made him laugh, how many other things out there was there to experience that could similarly make him feel better? So what he did, yeah. So in Gamble's letter, in that moment, he realized he didn't want to kill himself, found a new lease on life, and reconnected with his family and his grandchildren, and generally became his old self again. And he even played like Abe's Odyssey with his kids, and obviously the kids were loving it because, oh, well, Granddad like buys like PlayStation games and stuff now.
Right. You can kind of just see. Just what do we think? Like they're matching vibes.
And that's the thing, right? He just looks like him, right? Just like, sad.
Again, not to say that, not to insult the man and say he literally looks like this weird Madokan alien thing. Like,
Hey, he admitted it himself, right? He jokes
yeah,
about it. Of like, he just looked at the cover and went, "That's me."
just yeah, in a joking way, he's like, "Hey, that's me. That feels like my vibe right now."
And it made him pick it up. It made him like just take a chance. And the story gets better, Lucas, because he started having Abe tea parties with his grandchildren,
Okay.
where they play the game and draw pictures of the character. And then he got a tattoo of Abe in his mid-70s, and just wrote. Like I said, he wrote a 6-page letter on Lorne Lanning. Like, does a great recollection of his story, and it is like his most treasured possession, and he keeps it like in pride of place in his home office. And he can't tell the story without crying, because like to him, that's the moment he realized like the power that a video game can have to touch someone's life, like to it literally save that dude's life.
Yeah, and sorry for giggling at that moment. I had the image in my head that he, like, one day he's sitting at his desk and he pulls out the letter, and instead there's just a slip of paper that says Abe on there instead.
Abe.
Abe.
What a lovely story. That game literally saved that old man's life. And that's the power. It's the power of video games and just giving a fuck about the things that you make.
I've been meaning to watch it at some point, but it's on my list on Netflix there's a documentary that talks about like a kid that I think they had like a disability of some kind who was playing a lot of World of Warcraft and like spent majority of their life playing World of Warcraft on their own, and their parents like never really understood, and then they found out after they passed away that like, hey, no, actually this person was like really well regarded in the WoW community, and they had like a load of friends and relationships within this game that they spent years enjoying, and it's just like a really heartfelt story.
Yeah, it's like video games allow people, especially some like like RuneScape, for example, like a lot of people talk about how it allows you to form connections. There are people who've gotten married because they play video games, right? There are people who meet it gives them the courage or the inspiration to go to like a local meetup if they play like card games or they like a specific show. That's the power media can have over people, and it's why like media literacy being a dirty word is something I never understand. Like media has such a like powerful effect on people. It literally shapes the way we view the world. Why would you not endeavor to understand it as good as as much as you possibly could?
Yeah,
and when you hear
100%.
stories like this, it's so wholesome.
Yeah, and it's just that thing of like there's many games and many stories out there similar to just showcase how much of an impact individual game can have on people's lives and build communities. I think of like the story of how many people got together for like speaking of World of Warcraft, like I can't remember what it was, but it was like the original version of the game or something was like being taken off, or I can't quite remember, but like people like came together to celebrate that final moment. And there's been stories of that with other games like Halo 2. Halo 2 being taken offline, like the
servers were shutting, right? Because people had one last like LAN party.
People had one last day to play online, and I believe that they did like an extended marathon where they kept the game online for longer until like the last couple of people logged off, right?
Yeah, it was like do like before the 3DS servers went down. I said, yeah, I played one last game of Smash, and seemingly I'm the last person on Earth to play Smash Bros. And the person I played against, we just teabagged for the full 5 minutes. Right? Well, I think there's another story. It was in regards to Star Trek. It's a story told by whoever played like Doohan, I think. Whoever played Scotty. I have to double check because obviously I want to credit the guy's name. So it was a really great story told by him. So Scotty, he was played by James Doohan. So he talks about how he was at a convention once in Star Trek. A lot of people like Star Trek, but he was at a convention once and a young woman comes up to him and just tells him of like, just don't know why they said it, but it's like, I just couldn't think of anyone else to tell. Like, I'm really thinking about killing myself. And just, I thought you might have some advice for me. And James Doohan's like, don't have much to say to you besides, like, I wouldn't do it till you come to the next one, right? You're going to come to the next one of these. So, okay. Comes to the next convention, sees her again. That's like, gonna see you at the next one, right? And just this went on for a year, and he talks about how like after a while this lady didn't turn up, and he got really really worried. And like, he asked his like agent and stuff like, can you find this lady? You must have seen her all the time. And a year or so later, has got a letter in the post from that woman saying, "Oh yeah, I went to nursing school. I've got a kid and a husband now. Thank you." It's like it's the power that just giving a shit can have. Although I will say that was not on James Doohan to do.
No,
Right,
I was going to say that is a
it's
real
hard.
rough situation to be put in, and obviously when you're in that frame of mind, it's not necessarily like you're not in a frame of mind to be the most responsible with your thoughts and your actions, of course. And like, but it is a bit rough of like, hi stranger, I'm gonna dump all this on you. Can you help me? And obviously they found a solution to the problem, right? Because there's no real amount of like conversation I guess they could realistically have to make them necessarily feel better in that moment, but the idea of, hey, as long as I can just see you next time, then it'll be okay.
Yeah, like give them something to work towards. Like something think like, and I guess like I'm just gonna recount the statistic for anyone out there whoever finds themselves feeling that way. It's very telling, very harrowing. 90 to maybe I think it's like close to 100% of people who survive suicide attempts. In particular, I think it was a interview with people who jumped off of like tall buildings or the Golden Gate Bridge or something like that and survived. And the overwhelming amount of respondents to the point is like nigh on 100%. When they were asked like, what was the first thing you thought about when you jumped off the edge? And it's like, well, I thought about how insignificant all of my problems were and how easily they could be solved, save for the one problem of the fact I just stepped off the edge. Like the immediate thing that goes through every person's mind is regret. And how easily their problems could be solved if they put their mind to it. But they couldn't because they're falling off a bridge. It's like, yeah.
Like,
don't let the man get you down. Live long enough to collect social security.
It's tough times that we're living in right now, but it's an important thing to just remind people.
Got to outlive Trump.
Yeah, live through spite if nothing else.
Do it, outlive him, right?
If we all pray hard enough, it might not be very.
You got to outlive him, right? You got to outlive your enemies. You got to stunt on the haters.
That's the thing, right? Like, just if nothing else, just try and do things through spite, because spite is a great motivator.
I forget who it is. There's like some guy who's involved with wrestling. He's a piece of shit, but it's a very interesting story. I think it's like Jim Lovett or something like that. Like he himself is like a huge piece of shit, but he's like he hates another guy involved with wrestling, and he's like, I'm going to live for as long as I can. I literally have it written into my will that none of my kids get any of my money if they don't make it so that I don't care if I'm on fucking dialysis in a hospital. I'm going to outlive my enemy and my kids to get my money have to drag me from my hospital bed to his grave so I can piss on it. It's like, I can respect that level of pettiness.
Again, that person sounds like a piece of shit, but
you've got to respect it, right?
I've got to respect just the level of commitment they have towards being a fucking hater.
I will endeavour to live as long as I can out of pure distilled spite. Just the idea of I want you to drag me out of my hospital bed to piss on their grave.
And as someone that's always like, I'm 100% in the idea of like, if I'm at that place of like literally just being on life support, I don't want it to continue. But
if I can still play Smash Bros, I'm good.
I do like the idea that like, no, just keep me on it until the other fucker dies.
Yep.
Like that's just stunting on your rival, right?
You've got to do it. You got to stunt on the haters, man. You've got to do it.
And obviously,
if you're gonna live to stunt on the haters.
I don't know the reason for that in particular, but someone mentioning in chat comic books just reminds me of that comic book of like the guy that like gets tortured by Thanos for the entire life, and it's like, why did you do it? And Thanos is like, because I felt like it. I don't really give a shit.
Just a hater.
Just literally to just
King
fucking
shit.
pick on one person because I can.
I just like that one of like, why don't we get all the world's debt, give it to one guy, then kill him? And it's like, you just invented Christianity, right? You just invented financial Christianity.
Yeah, that one person can die for all our financials.
Yeah, just give everyone like all the world's debt, put it on one guy, and just shoot him. Right, then what happens?
I just imagine that it's like that you immediately do it, and it's that Michael Scott thing if he just screams like, "I declare bankruptcy."
He'd fucking work, right? Is that like one of the best like line reads? Just, I declare bankruptcy. It's like, Michael, that's not how it
That's
works.
not how it works. I'm sorry, mate. You can't just declare to the office that you're bankrupt. I think that'd be fantastic, though. I'd just walk outside and do it right.
But it's not a good idea. Don't do it.
No.
Bankruptcy will fuck you up.
I was having a conversation not long ago with somebody that had to declare their business bankrupt, and they were talking about, yeah, like the next, like, you know, amount of time. I'm not going to get too into the details on the behalf or anything, but like yeah, the next period of time is going to be absolutely wrong, and it had some bad effects. But you know, they were in that position where they needed to, and they're going to move on, and they're going to, you know, spite on all the haters and continue.
It's a good idea, though, right? You'll just get so massively in debt. It's like, you know what? I'm done.
Well,
So that's not how it works. No, I'm done. So that you can't do. That's not how it works. No, I'm done.
yeah, I still remember being like, I've been about 18 at the time, and I had like some amount of like debt that I couldn't pay off a credit card. They were like, "Oh, do you want to like I can't even remember the word for it, but like, do you want to wipe that debt off, basically?" And I was like, "Okay, so what are my options?" And like, "Well, we can wipe the debt for you, or you can pay us back." And I was like, "Well, don't have any money, so I guess wipe the debt for me, thank you." And I had no realization at the time that that's like, you know, gonna fuck up my credit score and things like that. Like, I did not know. They didn't explain anything to me. I was like,
No.
"You're just gonna get rid of my debt? That sounds great." It was not great.
Yeah,
I
think too. Like the house I've moved into, I'm still getting letters for the previous tenant, some Chinese guy. Like I own this place, but I still get like aggressive letters from like a bill collection agency for a Chinese guy. It's like clearly he just didn't pay any of his bills and went back to China. And it's like they're not fucking getting that guy.
No, I mean, fair. If you're just gonna like you're amongst international waters, only Israel can get you now.
Apparently, like that's just a thing a lot of like Chinese students do over here. Like they'll get like credit cards and go to, like Bright House and stuff and get TVs and get like payday loans and then just fuck off back to China. And it's like, what are they gonna do?
Like, yeah, do it. You probably can't come back here. But
it's
fuck
like, do you think the Chinese government's gonna extradite a national to pay their Bright House debt? Fuck no.
Oh god, it'd be great if they did. I mean, it wouldn't actually. I wouldn't agree with that. Like, again, fuck those companies. Just God, it's so funny the idea of like, what did you do? Well, I went over to this country to study, maxed out 30 credit cards, and pissed fuck off home.
I'm still getting letters for the dude. It's like every time I call him up, I'm like, he don't fucking live here anymore. It's like, do you know where he is? Probably China. Have you checked? You're not getting it back.
And also,
I'm sorry to tell you, you're not getting it back. It's gone.
I hope that, you know, my joke wasn't made in too poor taste. Like,
Greta Thunberg, right? International. She's fine.
Everybody is reported to have been like, you know, taken into custody without being harmed, and they're just being sent back somewhere. Like, hopefully, nothing comes bad of that. And you know, committing more like literal war crimes.
As I saw it reported, it's like Israel realized that their reports that the ship was a hospital full of children were incorrect, so decided not to bomb it.
Okay, at least I know that I didn't make the worst comment now.
It's not the worst comment, it's true. Have they not been doing that?
They have been, yeah, they have.
Is it incorrect to say that that's the thing they've done?
No, it's...
This is a comedy podcast.
It's meant to be. It was meant to be, Karl. I took it one step. Oh, okay.
You threw ball, and instead of catching it, I just threw it in the opposite, kept it going.
You were meant to like bring me back in.
Nah, man.
Oh god.
What are we gonna do? It's like the thing. It's like the thing with like that Chinese guy, right? It's like, what are we gonna fucking do? They're not gonna extradite me over there, are they? I'm not a fucking hospital. They're not gonna bomb me.
I'm waiting for like just the red dot to appear on Karl's forehead. Oh god. There is still at least one person out. Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, I would hope it goes without saying that it's totally fucked up, right? Like, again,
Yeah.
literal war crime being
And
committed.
we're using humor as a defense mechanism because we just don't know how else to deal with it. Because like in situations like this, gallows humor is the only real recourse, right? To avoid just falling into a crushing depression that Abe can save you from.
Like, in a world, like, again, like, what's one more war crime added onto the pile at this point? They're just like, fuck it. We're in deep, we might as well keep digging.
It's the war crime equivalent of people who like shit themselves, right? Like, well, at this point, does it matter if I shit myself anymore, right? How much worse can my reputation get?
Like, a vast majority of the UN have called us out on many war crimes. Let's just double down. Like, great, fantastic.
You're more on the pile, right?
Unbelievable. But anyway,
It's gallows humor. Like, we don't mean to trivialize or make light of anything like that. It's just, yeah. It's the only like real recourse you have, like, of just A bit upright. Oops, desensitized to the amount of shit we've got to deal with.
I mean, that is the harrowing thing. Is it does get to a point where like it's hard to not look at the news and be desensitized to a lot of it at this point because every day is a bad day, and it's like, okay, you know what? Let's call it because I don't want people to come onto this podcast and keep getting reminded of this shit. So
Yeah, that's why we tend not to mention it as well. So yeah, we
do our best.
We appreciate the support. Thank you for watching. Go play some video games.
We're all in chat saying Abe's Odyssey is $1.99. I'm getting it out of this stream. Goddamn yeah.
The choice is Abe's Odyssey or a cheeseburger. A tough choice.
They're both pretty cheap, right?
Yeah, food for the body or food for the soul.
Thank you all for watching. I hope you all have.
Cheers.